Good evening, everyone. So, what was the last topic we have discussed in previous class? I think we saw these infographics and we had to continue from these terms in use. Sovereign green bonds. Okay. So, any questions from previous class? In the previous class we discussed about whatever is in the budget. With regard to budget, I don't think you need to study anything else. Mostly all the highlights of budget I have covered. Any questions? Sunrise sector. Sunrise sector means the sectors which are not yet well developed but show huge amount of potential for future. They are called as sunrise sector. Imagine, because we are focusing more on circular economy now, in future recycling or some sort of e-waste recycling or something like this, compressed we saw biogas, all these sectors are going to become more important. And similarly, sectors like maybe even AI, 3D printing, because of technological change that happens, drones as a sector, so that means these type of things, subsectors also are, they are all sunrise sectors. Decoupling. Okay, the meaning of decoupling, you can think of it like this. Right now, when GDP increase happens, that means when growth has to happen, along with that, even you can say negative impact on environment also increases, equivalent to you can say increase in growth. That means both of them are coupled together. Coupled means tied up together. Decoupling means what we want to do is GDP increase should continue to happen as it is, but there should not be overlap of degradation of environment, it should be much lesser. The distance, the more distance we have here, the more decoupled they are. Absolute decoupling means there is no link at all. We have actually going on the opposite direction. That means environment is actually recovering, whereas GDP is increasing. Impact decoupling, I think you see the terminology there, what they have given particularly. So, I don't remember exactly the term, you can see the term. Between them, we are trying to remove coupling. Coupling means, you can see, impact decoupling. This is environmental pressure and this is economic activity. We want increased economic activity to happen. Economic activity means more production, and we want less environmental pressures. That means environmental impact is decoupled from economic activity. Resource decoupling means if we have to increase economic activity, how much resources we are using right now. We want to increase economic activity but we have to use less resources. This is resource decoupling. And well-being decoupling. People have to feel a sense of well-being without using too many resources. It means we don't need to use too many resources to feel sense of well-being and fulfillment. So these links, if we can remove existing links, that is called as decoupling. As of now they are coupled together and we want to decouple them.
So you can say that it is optimum utilization of resources with positive externalities?
Yes, we can say ultimate goal here is what? Sustainability. So positive externality, better utilization of resources, even reduction of you can say some resources utilization. Sometimes some things are you can say not necessary for fulfillment. So government may consider them as conspicuous. It means unnecessary type of consumption and impose taxes on it and such other things. So through policy, what we'll do is we'll try to create this sort of divergence between how much resource use is happening and how much actually economic activity is happening and sense of well-being of people. Any other questions? Yeah.
How the devaluation of money impacted demand?
How devaluation of currency, that means rupee you are saying. If devaluation of rupee happens, usually it leads to inflation in India. That means what happens to purchasing power if, imagine you have cash. How devaluation leads to inflation? Imports will become costly because devaluation will lead to, you can say, dollar outflow from India. As dollar outflow happens, you can say devaluation means first of all you can say imports will become costlier as this leads to inflation. Inflation leads to dollar outflow from India. This is a vicious cycle that will occur. You understood this? So what happens to our purchasing power? Purchasing power keeps reducing. Think of it like this. What we are talking about is devaluation, rupee value reduction. As rupee value reduces, inflation will increase. As inflation increases, dollar outflow happens. As outflow happens, further devaluation will happen. Imports will become costlier, exports will increase. Problem is in India, imports, even though they are costlier, we have to buy them. Most of them are necessary imports, and that is why you can say rupee devaluation and this inflation continue to happen. It is not that because they are costly we will stop imports. We can't do that, because oil and such other necessary imports we will continue to import them. How devaluation is done? If you remember, we discussed about a warehouse type of a imaginary concept where people will buy and sell these currencies. If RBI wants to reduce the value of Indian currency, what should we do in that warehouse? So we have to increase the supply of Indian rupee so that demand supply equation will change, and this is how devaluation is done. RBI will just take a bunch of rupee and it will sell it. When it sells, its supply of rupee increases, and you can say demand is same, supply increases, value reduces. This is what we call as devaluation.
The devaluation of currency leads to inflation, but it does not mean that the demand will increase or decrease. So how can if the inflation increases, then we cannot necessarily say that the demand will also increase, because the demand increases, then the inflation increases.
If inflation is already increasing, this is happening through cost push inflation. So you are asking about the impact on demand. Okay, if you are only looking isolatedly, when inflation happens, what will be the impact on demand in the country? In fact, inflation is already happening, that is the cause. What is the consequence on demand? People imagine a person who is earning 1 lakh rupee as income. Earlier using 30,000 they could buy basic necessities. Now it has increased to 40,000 to buy basic necessities. How much remaining disposable income is present? Earlier it used to be 70,000 disposable income. Now it has reduced it to 60,000, because even basic necessities itself are costlier. When everybody in the country has less disposable income, what happens to demand in the country? Demand is going to reduce. As inflation increases, people feel everything is costly and let us save money. So that means they will feel that it is not a good idea to buy too much, because basic necessities itself have become costlier and disposable income is less. So they can't buy much. Ability aspect of, you can say, demand. Willingness is still there, ability has reduced. You understood this?
So what are currency wars?
Currency?
Currency wars.
Currency war. So when a country devalues its currency, imagine China is an exporting country, it wants to devalue its currency. Why does a exporting country devalue its currency? To increase its exports. This part we have discussed already. When China does it, imagine India tries to competitively devalue Indian currency also, so that we can also compete with Chinese exports. When India does it, imagine Bangladesh does it, Myanmar does it, Vietnam does it. Everybody has devalued their currency and they are trying to competitively to increase their exports. This is what we call as a currency war. When everybody has come to the same level, in the supermarket in USA all prices are almost similar. It won't make a difference. There is no difference between, you can say, all these countries now. And at this point, there is only a negative impact on all the countries, because imports have become costlier now and exports are not increasing, because you can say competitively, if you look at it, everything is at the same level. This is what we call as currency war. Currency war, it has happened in 2017-18, I think there was a major currency war between all these countries, whichever I just discussed. After that, they all met at a G20 meeting, they shook hands and said, we'll stop this currency war because it is not creating a positive impact on anybody. You understood this? So, how devaluation improves exports? Okay, because of devaluation, how exports increase, as you can say, devaluation means how many dollars we can buy using rupee. Earlier it was 85, now it has, you have to pay 90 rupees to buy $1. This is the meaning of devaluation. It also means if somebody in USA pays $1, earlier the person used to get 85, now he gets 90 rupees or not. So that means as devaluation happens, somebody who is importing our product in another country, that means we are exporting it to them, for them, they are able to get more of our product or not? So this is why our exports, in their quantity our exports will increase because we are out competing other countries who are exporting, you can say, alongside India. So amount of quantity of our exports will keep increasing, dollar inflow into India will increase. So this is why dollar, you can say, devaluation will increase exports.
प्राइस भी तो बढ़ रहा होगा ना इंडिया में, जैसे कि वो पहले 85 में खरीद रहे थे, अब इंडिया में 90 में खरीद रहे हैं, लेकिन जो प्राइस भी तो इन्फ्लेशन की वजह से बढ़ गया होगा.
That is in India. In India, yes, rupees, you can say it won't matter for, because we are getting dollars, right? For a person in USA, even if it is in India, you can say slightly costly, they are able to get more using the same, for them it is same, $1 only. For us within India it is costlier. For them it is, you can say, the product price, whatever it is, it won't matter. For them they are paying how much? In dollars only. You understood this? A person in supermarket in USA is paying same $1 now, same $1 earlier also. What has happened is rupee value has reduced compared to dollar. When he gives $1, he is getting more rupees. That is the only difference that has happened. So, impossible trinity, I think I have added that also in some miscellaneous topics. At the end I will discuss it. Any other questions? Sinking fund. Okay, sinking fund means when government takes a loan, if it is a long term loan that they have taken, then usually they will create a fund. In this fund every year they will add some money, because if they don't, imagine they have taken a 20-year loan, 20 years later they have to pay back this loan. If they don't have a plan to pay back the loan, suddenly 20 years later how will they pay back? They won't have any mechanism to pay it back. And suddenly if they tax so much on people, what would happen? If it is a large loan, suddenly if they tax so much and they use that money to pay back the loan, what would happen in the economy? This will lead to vicious cycle. How? Because demand reduces, because everybody will pay so much of taxes that they don't have much money. To prevent this situation, what government does is, government, instead of after 20 years taxing people, right now every year it will add a little bit into a separate fund, and this fund will be invested somewhere. That means they will invest it in maybe some infrastructure bonds or something else, even stock market also. They will diversify it and they will get good returns on it also. Imagine they are getting relatively some 8%, 10% return, because for 20 years they are getting good returns. Overall, if you see how much money has been added by government, imagine if they have taken 100 rupee loan, government would have added only 60 rupees. Remaining 40 rupees is returns that they have got by investing the same money that they have put into this account. So on both sides, government has benefit, because right now they don't need to, at the end of 20 years they have enough money to pay back without creating a negative impact on the economy by overtaxing them. This is what we saw in USA as what? Fiscal cliff. They have this sort of a problem as fiscal. To avoid fiscal cliff type of a situation, they create this sinking fund. Utility of sinking fund is twofold. One is we can avoid fiscal cliff type of a situation. Second is our burden of how much money has to be repaid by government will reduce, because whatever money we have added, it will be invested in, returns will also be used to pay back the loan. You understood this?
So it is a part of CFA?
It is a part of this sinking fund. Sinking fund will be kept aside. It will be part of CFA only. CFA, actually Consolidated Fund of India, CFI, is not a single account. It is just a notional concept with probably tens of thousands of accounts. Within that, this is, you can say, one account. You understood this? Yeah. Sinking fund money, government will only, you can say, it will give it to a professional who will invest. That means a professional team of investors will take it and they will invest that money. It is similar to concept of mutual fund. Just like we have this sovereign wealth fund where we will take money, you can say fund manager will invest this money in infrastructure or something. Similarly, sinking fund also operates in a similar manner. Any other questions? Fiscal drag. Okay. Fiscal drag, earlier we have seen fiscal drag, if it has to happen, two conditions should be satisfied. One, there should be high inflation. Second, there should be progressive tax system. In a progressive tax system, people who are on the edge of this previous, you can say, tax bracket, because of high inflation, they will jump to the next tax bracket. When they jump to the next tax bracket, they will pay more tax. When they pay more tax, their disposable income will reduce. Some 20-30% of the population are affected because they are on the edge of this tax bracket. Because they have less disposable income now, ability to, you can say, buy things there as demand reduces in the country. As demand reduces, virtuous cycle strength will reduce. Sometimes even a vicious cycle is created. A drag on the economy is created. So that means economic growth will slow as inadvertently government has collected too much tax. That was not their original intention, but this is what is happening. Too much of tax is collected. To avoid this, we saw, you can say, we are using a different method. Until here we pay tax of this bracket only. After this we pay tax of this bracket. After this we pay tax of next bracket. You understood this? So, next coming to sovereign green bonds. Now if you look at it, a bond means what? A loan has been taken. Green bond means loan has been taken for a particular purpose. Green purpose means what? Projects which are, you can say, favorable to environment. Maybe it is for renewable energy projects like maybe a wind energy or some solar plant, or these type of things are all, you can say, all the projects that are, you can say, allowed under green bonds. There is a list, long list, we don't need to know all those projects, but imagine they are going to invest it in creating large government funded solar parks, offshore windmills and such other things. This is green bond. Sovereign means government actually is taking a loan to invest here, that is why we call it as sovereign green bond. Sometimes even private sector can actually issue these green bonds also, that will be normal green bond. Sovereign green bond means particularly if government is issuing, that is why we call it as sovereign green bond. So how private sector can issue it? If the company itself is involved in green business, then it can issue green bonds because it is falling under that category. If it issues bonds, then it will have some benefits, whatever green bonds get, the company when it issues, it will get that also. Imagine a solar panel manufacturing company. They can also take loans by issuing green bonds. You understood this? So we want to focus more on production of renewable energy. So that is why we are creating this green bonds as a separate concept. The government can create, add or remove any type of extra incentives or reduce taxes on loans given under green bonds, etc. If we have made it as a separate category, government will have that kind of flexibility to deal with green bonds separately. So bonds issued to take loans only for green projects, reduced carbon emissions, then we call it as, you can say, a green project. Blue bonds. Recently blue bonds are in use. Green bonds were there long ago, and sovereign green bonds also government is issuing now. Blue bonds means it is already also green, but along with that it is related to blue economy only. That means it should be sustainable, but along with being sustainable, blue economy means what? It will focus on renewable energy, fisheries, maritime transport, climate change, tourism, waste management. These things all come under blue economy. So if you want to get a clear picture of blue economy, you can see there are three things. You can see seafood, marine production, renewable energy, and offshore engineering. That means whatever we do in the ocean, in the coast, along with being sustainable. So all the three things put together is called as blue economy. So we are, you can say, focusing on sustainability on the coast or in the ocean. Then that is when you can say we will release blue bonds. We can only use the money for these type of purposes. So next we'll discuss 15th Finance Commission report. Earlier we have already seen what exactly is the function of Finance Commission. In India we have a asymmetric type of federal structure where who is more powerful? Center is more powerful compared to the states. So we realized that some sort of a, you can say, imbalance is present and we need to balance it. So the balancing wheel of Indian federalism is finance. Finance Commission is a constitutional body. It is a temporary body. It is not permanently created. Once in 5 years they will appoint a new Finance Commission. The most recent Finance Commission appointed is 15th Finance Commission. There are two kinds of transfers that are done by, you can say, Finance Commission. There is two types, vertical devolution and horizontal devolution. Vertical devolution means we saw that center has more money, states have less money. So from center to states, they will send some money. This is called vertical devolution. But there is not one state. There are many states here. That means we have 28 states in India. So that means we have to divide it among these states. How to divide it among the states is for horizontal devolution. We know now that 41% is being sent from center from divisible pool to the states, but how to divide it among the states, that is, you can say, horizontal devolution. So Finance Commission itself will give the suggestion for both vertical devolution and horizontal devolution, which state should get more is also clarified by the Finance Commission itself. Vertical devolution, 41% of the divisible pool, they are untied grants. Untied means what? What exactly is a tied grant?
Something attached to it.
Tied to some, there is a condition. Then when it is attached to some condition, you should only use this for MG Narega, you should only use it for Gram Sadak Yojana, then it is called a tied grant. Untied grant means there is no condition. You choose what your priorities are, the state can decide where it wants to spend that money by itself. According to needs and aspirations of the people of that state, they will prioritize and they will spend it. Center will not impose or force the state to spend this money on any particular matter. That is why they are called as untied grants. You understood this? They don't come into Consolidated Fund of India, and union territories will not get it. Who will govern union territories? Central government. Which ministry in particular? Union Home Ministry, Ministry of Home Affairs is, you can say, dealing with union territories, so they will get that part of share, so they will use that money to govern these union territories. So that means states will not get that part. 14th Finance Commission had recommended 42% and they used to send 42%. Between 14th and 15th Finance Commission, Jammu and Kashmir was made into a union territory. So that 1% extra, whatever they used to send to Jammu Kashmir as a state, has now been retained with Union Home Ministry because it is a union territory. And that is why total devolution that is happening to states has reduced from 14th Finance Commission to 15th Finance Commission from 42% to 41%. You understood this? So what will not be a part of this divisible pool? That means what will not come into this at all, only center will hold it. Cost of collection of taxes. Government will calculate how much money did we spend to collect all these taxes. That money government, central government itself will keep because it is the one which spent it. So that is, you can say, cost of collection of taxes. We already saw cess and surcharge. They are not distributed with states. They are kept by the center itself. This had become a, like I said, conflict between center and states. This is one of those irritants between center and states. Whenever there is some sort of an issue, this will come up, that center is creating too many cesses and surcharge and they are not distributing it, they are not giving it to states. So this is one more thing which is some sort of a cause of tension between center and states. Tax revenue of union territories will also not be added because it will go to, like I said, Union Home Ministry. The National Calamity Contingency Duty. This is also separate tax collected for, the name itself it is there. What will it be used for? Calamity means what? It is a disaster. In Indian law, there are, you can say, two words used. Crisis. Crisis means there is a problem. When we cannot handle that problem using existing resources and such other things, then it is called as a disaster. So there is a difference between crisis and disaster. Crisis means some conditions are present which can convert it into a disaster. But these conditions, if we don't handle them, then it will be, you can become a disaster. You understood this? National Disaster Management Act and you can say National Disaster Management Policy, they all speak about this sort of crisis and disaster. When something happens as a disaster, there are state level small disasters. State government usually is responsible to deal with them normally. But sometimes the disaster is so severe that it is declared as a national disaster. That means the state's resources are not, you can say, enough, or the state's administrative mechanism is not competent enough to deal with that disaster. Then central government will give extra funds and also it will give extra manpower, NDRF and such, they will send it, you can say, National Disaster Response Force, and from the National Calamity Contingency Fund they will give money also. So this is called as, you can say, a national level disaster. COVID was national disaster, some Bhuj earthquake, tsunami, Indian Ocean tsunami, even there were major floods in any state. Assam also we have declared it as a national disaster multiple times. In Tamil Nadu we have declared. So in these cases central government will give extra support funding and even otherwise. So there this money will be used, it will be kept with central government itself. You understood this?
Sir, what about the tax revenue of the union territory with legislature?
So even if it is with legislature, it will still go to, you can say, with legislature whatever is there, then it will be given to that particular government from Union Home Ministry. It is not going into divisible pool. Home Ministry is still there as a coordinating agency even among, you can say, it is between the Home Ministry and that particular Union Territory's administration, how they deal with it. So usually what happens is for police and such other things, Home Ministry will directly take the money, and other things, Home Ministry will give the money for, you can say, that particular, for example, Delhi state government or such. So this is basically the things which are not actually shared with states, that means they are excluded from the divisible pool. What are the parts of divisible pool? Okay, sources of this divisible pool, everything other than this, all the taxes collected by center, that means you can say direct taxes, GST, all the GST collection, all direct tax collection, corporate tax, income tax, all the sources of income that come to, you can say, central government, except these things, everything will be part of divisible pool. That is why it is huge amount of money. It will be there in, if you look at total 5 years how much they are actually sending, it will be there in tens of lakhs, I mean tens of lakhs of crores, like 70 lakh crore, 80 lakh crores and such. So this is basically what is removed from divisible pool is there, everything else is actually part of divisible pool itself. Parameters for distribution of taxes among the states. On what basis are we deciding how to distribute among the states? This is what type of devolution? This is horizontal devolution. Vertical devolution is where we send from, you can say, center to states. Horizontal is between states. So first is called income distance. Income distance means, imagine the richest state in the country is some Maharashtra or something, it will be given at the top level, Maharashtra will be present. If you consider this as the top level income of the state, there are some other states which are somewhere in the, you can say, somewhere here. Income distance means how far each state is away from, you can say, this richest state. Imagine this will be, income distance of this state will be high or low? Distance is high because it is a relatively poorer state. These are all relatively poorer states. As the distance between the richest state to this state keeps increasing, they will get more and more money as devolution from the center. What will be the implication of this? Who will get more money in India? Poorer states are going to get more money, richer states are going to get less money. This is called as RRTs, redistributive resource transfers. Redistributive resource, why are they called redistributive? We are taking from rich states and giving it to poor states. That is why it is called as redistributive resource transfers. You can see 45% weightage is given for this only. What is our goal with this? Reducing regional inequality is, you can say, our goal, so that you can say even poorer states will also develop quickly. There is convergence that will happen between poorer and richer states. That means rich states are developing, poor states, if they develop quickly, we can slowly, every finance commission distance, overall distance itself should keep reducing. That is the final goal. You understood this? This is income distance. Then population according to 2011 census. In polity you would have seen that when Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister, they froze this 1971 census and they said for everything we will only use this because we have given targets to reduce population among, you can say, all the states. So if states are successful in reducing population, then, and if they take the new population, as population reduces, what happens to devolution to those states? It will reduce. We don't want that to happen. So that means states should not be thinking that next finance commission we will not get better funds if we reduce our population. Everybody should give 100% to reduce their population. So they said let us just consider 1971 census, freeze it there, and later we'll see. They said same, maybe after 2021 census, whatever happens, at that time we will take you can say into consideration the next population. But this Finance Commission's opinion was, it has been too long now and we should start considering the present population, because if you consider the same thing whatever you are considering since 1971, we are treating as if somebody in Uttar Pradesh where population is around 25 crores or something is half a person compared to somebody in Kerala where you can say population is very less. Because in 1971 if you see the population and now if you see the population, it is almost doubled in some states like UP, but it does not increase much in Kerala. It means that the funds are being divided among more number of people now or not. That means right to equality can be considered to be violated or not. So that is why we felt that it is time now that we should start considering 2000, whatever recent census is, 2011 population was considered. So once 2011 population was considered, all the southern states protested against this. They said that whatever we have, you can say, worked hard to reduce population and improve demographic performance, all this is going in vain and we are going to get less funds because of our success. So that was also not acceptable for southern states. So to balance this out, they introduced demographic performance as another category, another indicator. So demographic performance means whichever state has performed better in controlling their population, for them will give a little extra funds. So that is 12.5% weightage is given for demographic performance, and population according to the recent census has been given as 15%. If you see in 14th Finance Commission, instead of both of them, some old population, 71 population or something, whatever was there, only they used to take that type of population. You understood this? So this is change that has happened now. Along with population, recent population, they also have added demographic performance. That means whichever states have performed better with regard to control of population, they will get extra weightage in funding. So then southern states felt, okay, we are not going to make much loss here, and it was acceptable. You understood this? Then state area. The bigger the area, the more difficult it is to govern the state. A state like Rajasthan, even Maharashtra in Vidarbha district, basically it is as big as some European countries. So that means you can see that governance of this district is going to become difficult, as you have to hire more people and you need to have more manpower and maybe create more divisions. All these things will not happen without extra funding. So as the area of the state increases, we will give a little extra weightage and we will give extra money to those states which are bigger states compared to smaller states. So this is area. Then forest and ecology. So this criteria earlier it did not exist. Later India started recognizing its natural capital. Natural capital means this is what is forest and ecology. Already whatever naturally is present, we are not converting it into assets or understanding what is the economic value of this natural capital. Once we started recognizing that we have this sort of natural capital, we felt we have to conserve it. And how to conserve it? Right now, whoever has more amount of area under forest cover will get, you can say, extra funding under Finance Commission transfers, because if forest and ecology is given 10% weightage, now every state will think, if I increase my forest cover, then in next Finance Commission, you can say, I will get more money to my state. So all states now have an incentive to increase their forest cover or not. And also they have a disincentive to cut down forests also. That means deforestation can be avoided, and they will take, you can say, stronger measures to avoid deforestation and increase afforestation. This is especially true for northeastern states where rapid amount of deforestation was happening, and we felt that in northeast if we have to protect forests, then we have to add this in, you can say, this Finance Commission report. In northeast especially, in the last forest survey of India, basically they will release a report. In that they have written about what is happening in northeast. Government of India created a incentive that if you grow oil palm in India, oil palm means what? Or in fact any oil seeds. So it could be vegetable oil, sunflower oil, groundnut oil. If you grow oil seeds and produce oil and sell it, then we will give you incentive. So in northeastern states, what they have started doing was, they started doing jhum cultivation. Jhum means? This slash and burn, shifting cultivation in the forest. They used to cut down 5 acres of forest and grow some oil palm. But the problem is northeast has some evergreen forest. Because of heavy rainfall, fertility of the soil within 4-5 months after cutting down those trees, it will be reduced. So they have to keep on shifting. This led to reduction in forest cover. Then Ministry of Environment Forest recommended to central government to withdraw these incentives in Northeast especially because it is leading to rapid depletion of forest cover. And so along with this, all these type of policies we have taken to increase forest cover and reduction of deforestation in India. You understood this? Then tax and fiscal effort. This is with regard to how much each state is capable of earning its own money. That means, are they creating systems in such a way they will be able to earn their own taxes? Are they creating, you can say, administrative capacity within this their own finance ministries to be able to earn enough tax? That is called tax and fiscal effort. If they are putting in adequate effort to create this sort of taxation system within their states, then a little bit extra money is given. This is to incentivize to develop their own sources of revenue. So this is, you can say, these are the categories we will give weightages and we will calculate which state should get how much out of the divisible pool. Based on that, you can say they will divide among all the states. You understood this?
The forest and ecology, the percentage of the taxes is given based upon area or?
Yes, area of forest only. If area of forest, you can say, they will just take percentage area of, you can say, the state. If percentage area of state is more, it is not exactly okay. Area means it is not in acres or something, it is taken as percentage area of the state. If more percentage area of the state actually is under forest cover, one thing is the state has more, you can say, normally without this, the state has more incentive to cut down the forest because they don't have much space for other further development. So that we can avoid by adding, you can say, percentage area of the state as forest cover. Yes, MP will also get more, and in Northeast in some states it is up to 70%, 80% also, yeah. So they will also get more under this. So apart from this, they also have grants in aid. First is normal finance commission transfers based on, you can say, these parameters. Apart from this, grants in aid means central government will choose particular states and particular areas where they will give extra grants. As per Article 275, Finance Commission should recommend grants in aid for the states out of Consolidated Fund of India. So 15th Finance Commission recommended the following 5 types. First is revenue deficit grants. What is the meaning of revenue deficit? When revenue expenditure is more than revenue receipt, that is called revenue deficit. In India, you can see a lot of states have revenue deficit. In India, 17 states first we will start with giving revenue deficit grant, and after that slowly we will keep reducing. By end of 5th year, you can say 6 states will get it. In some cases, center is giving because some particular problem is present in the state to earn enough revenue. Maybe it is a hilly state or border state where economic activity is not improving very quickly. In some other cases, center is somehow responsible for creating the revenue deficit. For example, when it split up Andhra Pradesh into Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, all the revenue went into Telangana because Hyderabad was major source of revenue which went to Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh was getting less revenue. So center said we will give this revenue deficit grant whatever is there for Andhra Pradesh. So this way they have decided that some revenue deficit grants are given, you can say, for states. To begin with 17 states, slowly they will reduce to 6 states. That is one type of grants in aid. Then local body grants. Local bodies means what are we talking about? Panchayati Raj institutions, urban local bodies. For them, a grant is given, you can say, for panchayats and urban local bodies. Totally over 5 years it is 4.36 lakh crores. 60% is tied to WASH schemes. WASH means, it is an international term used by UN, water, sanitation, hygiene. This is the meaning of WASH. In India, what are the schemes under this WASH? Swachh Bharat Abhiyan related schemes, and also drinking water related scheme, whatever is there. So Jal Jeevan Mission, they will come under this WASH. So for urban local body and Panchayati Raj both, 60% of the money, this money is linked to this WASH and also rainwater harvesting. Some other things related to water and sanitation only. So, and remaining 40% of the money is untied grant. We already saw what is the meaning of tied and untied. Remaining 40% money, panchayat itself or urban local body itself can decide where they want to spend the money. But 60% is spent only on these type of schemes. This is the meaning of, you can say, tied and untied. Then disaster management grants. So this one, 75% is given by states, 25% by, center is giving 75%, state will give 25%. For Northeast, central will give 90%. So they will say first state should give the money, then only we will give the money. Otherwise states will say first you give 75, they will not give anything. So that means states have to give that 25%, then center will add its 75%. So what are they going to use it for? 80% for response fund. Response means what? After the disaster has happened, whatever happens, that is, imagine here disaster happens on a timeline. Whatever happens post disaster is response. Whatever happens pre-disaster is mitigation. Mitigation means reduction of the impact. Before the disaster happens itself, we would have taken measures that if it happens, we will try and reduce the impact of this disaster if it ever happens. That is called as mitigation. Can you give any example of how we mitigate disasters?
Like during floods, we can create embankments across the river.
Embankments to prevent flooding, so that is correct. Then earthquake resistant buildings, correct. So this is all example of mitigation. Mock drills, developing capacity, you can say among administration, among people, awareness among them, all this expenditure that we do is all mitigation.
But this 80% fund is like promoting a kind of thinking that let the disaster to occur and then we will do something.
Okay, so the point is they are spending 80% for response and only 20% for mitigation. So he's saying basically focus is more on response rather than mitigation. But what government has said to this criticism is it has tried to integrate disaster management into welfare schemes itself. For example, under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana for housing, government has created 200 model houses and people, it is divided among all the, you can say, states. In Assam, for example, floods are a problem. There are 15 types of houses within these 200 houses which you can choose in Assam, which are all flood resistant. In some other Gujarat, maybe earthquake resistant housing under Awas Yojana. That means they have already designed within this housing and within, you can say, in MG Narega they are already funding efforts to build check dams to prevent floods. So that means you can see that already lot of mitigation effort is going on in regular development schemes itself. So they said that there is no need for explicit expenditure on mitigation separately because we are already spending. There is a disaster reduction element in every welfare scheme that we are implementing. So that is the reason why they have reduced it, you can say, mitigation fund. In fact, in India, there was National Disaster Management Policy in 2009. And after 2009, our primary goal is actually prevention. That means before the disaster happens. PQ, prevention, preparedness and protection. So prevention means to avoid the disaster completely if it is possible. Imagine landslide. It is possible to avoid it by recognizing, you can say, there is a potential for landslide here. That is prevention. Preparedness means imagine we don't know it is possible it will happen, maybe tsunami we can't avoid it. Preparedness means there is tsunami, our early warning system and we can turn on the alarms and sirens and people can go away from the coast and such things can happen. And protection, protecting the people by evacuating and such other things. This is our primary goal since 2009. Before 2009 there was, you can say, focus on RQ, relief, rehabilitation and rescue. Rescue, relief, rehabilitation. Rescuing the people after the disaster has happened. Relief means providing them food, shelter, water, whatever is necessary. Rehabilitation means somehow, bringing them back to normal life. This was the primary goal before 2009. After 2009, there is a shift from this R cube to P cube. You understood? In National Disaster Management Policy 2009. So, but because of this P cube, we are not actually doing this prevention preparedness in separate scheme. We have integrated into all the existing schemes itself. And that is why right now we are not spending more money in response fund. We are spending, more money in mitigation fund. We are spending more money in response. You understood this? So, then sector specific grants. In particular states, some sectors central government has identified that where we have to give a little bit of extra grant for, you can say, development of that sector. For school, health, higher education, agricultural reforms implementation they are giving. Land lease reforms. Land lease, there was a T. Hague committee, HAQUE, appointed by central government. This T. Hague committee gave recommendations on land leasing. Earlier in India, in first generation land reforms, land was treated to be some sort of, you can say, because of socialist legislation, there was one major problem. If somebody is tilling the land for certain number of years, say in some states 20 years, in other states 30 years, then the land ownership will automatically go to them. You understood this? Because in India pre-independence there were zamindars who owned 50,000, 60,000 acres of land. They did not get it through just means from British. Because of this reason we felt that they are not the real owners. People who are tilling the land are real owners. How will we know? If they have paid tax and are tilling the land for the last 30 years, then whoever is the actual owner on paper won't matter. If you can show proof that I am tilling the lands in the last 30 years, then the ownership will be transferred to you. This created fear in the mind of actual owners of land. And so this created, you can say, fear against leasing of land also. And because of this reason, approximately 5 to 10% of fertile land area in India is remaining fallow because they are not leasing it. Because they had this fear that we may lose land if we lease it. You understood? So T. Hague committee came up with a solution right now that we remove all these old archaic laws. Right now we are giving a guarantee of ownership. There is no loss of land that will happen. If you lease it, automatically once lease period is over, it doesn't matter how many years it is, it will come back to the actual owner. So we have given a legal guarantee that it will not lose the land. So more people will give this land on lease. If more people give land on lease, what is the advantage? Agricultural productivity is going to increase. And even people who wanted to leave their agriculture and go do something else in a town, they can lease it to their neighbor and they can, you can say, reap a bigger land. Economies of scale will also happen in agriculture. So these type of advantages, increase productivity, increase production, GDP will increase. This is one of the land reform in recent times. Land is actually a state subject. Central government cannot exactly directly implement it. So a model land leasing act has been enacted by center and they have asked states to adopt it. Some states, about, like I said, whichever central government, same party, if it is in power, they have all adopted it. Others, they have not yet adopted it. This is land lease reforms. Sustainable and efficient water use in agriculture. So for this also, we have National Water Mission in NAPCC, you would have seen in, you can say, National Action Plan on Combating Climate Change. That is basically climate change. National Action Plan on Climate Change, it has 8 submissions. Under this, one of the mission is National Water Mission. So this NAPCC is important for prelims. You can read it once. Under National Water Mission, we want to reduce wastage of water. That means increase efficiency by 20%. The biggest wastage of water is actually happening in agriculture because we use flood irrigation. So for that also, you can say government is giving money for states. Export promotion is simple. We already know why we should export and why we are trying to promote exports. Then contribution towards Atmanirbhar Bharat in terms of oil seeds, pulses, wood-based products. In a lot of, you can say, India is actually a large consumer of this oil. That is why, like I said, we have a lot of incentives to grow oil. In India, whatever oil we are producing is not enough for consumption. In India, actually, India is the largest producer of food-related oil. That means edible oil. It is largest importer and largest consumer in the entire world. Indians eat a lot of oil. Even though India is second most populated country. In China, people don't probably eat much oil. They eat only momos and dumplings. So that means because of this reason, you can see more amount of consumption of oil is happening in India. That is why we want to reduce this oil, you can say oil seeds production in India. If it increases, we can reduce import. Most of our import of oil seeds is happening from Southeast Asian countries, including Indonesia. In fact, largest import of oil palm is happening from Indonesia. With regard to Indonesia, you can see orangutans in news always because of the kind of oil palm they are growing. That means Indonesia is an equatorial country. What type of forest will be present there? Evergreen. So orangutan is type of an ape. They are all dying because evergreen forests are cut down and to grow oil palm. So this is also a major issue, a worldwide, you can say, wildlife related issue, which is very popular across the world with regard to orangutans. So that is with regard to oil seeds. Then maintenance of Gram Sadak Yojana roads, judiciary, statistics, aspirational districts we already saw, and power sector we will see you can say during economic survey we will discuss a bit about that. Remaining judiciary, we saw e-courts, 3 stages of e-courts and such. Maintenance of Gram Sadak is simple. Statistics, to collect and maintain statistics properly so that this data can be used for policy relevant, you can say, information that can be derived out of it. So that is why we are trying to maintain statistics. Then along with, you can say this, so far whatever we have seen are 4th type of grant, sector specific performance based incentives. Then state specific grants, this is a tied. Tied means we are giving conditionally to particular state for a particular reason. We are trying to help overcome special needs of that particular state, that is why we are giving this money. 6 broad themes are present, totally we will give 10.33 lakh crores over 5 years. First is social needs of the state. For example, some states are predominantly tribal in nature, so where we have to maybe give extra money for taking extra measures to improve, accelerate the development of the state. So that is social need. Then administrative governance related infrastructure. Administrative governance means infrastructure for governance means what do we need there? Government office infrastructure or government buildings itself are not built enough, especially in some northeast and eastern India in general and northeast in particular. Sufficient amount of development of government infrastructure has not happened. So they will develop that. For that also they will give money. Conservation and sustainable use of water, drainage, sanitation. This part we just saw. So under WASH also they are giving, particularly if a state has severe problems, we will give extra for that state. Preserving culture and historical monuments. So we will recognize some, you can say, historical monuments in some states, and extra money is given, you can say, for that state. For example, in Karnataka, Hampi is declared as something, or we saw, I think earlier 1 or 2 years ago, Rani Ki Vav was declared as UNESCO World Heritage Site. So central will give extra money for preserving that, because now it is a World Heritage Site, more tourism will occur there and such. So that is, you can say, preserving culture and historical monument. High cost of physical infrastructure. That means wherever, you can say, in any state if they are building high cost physical infrastructure like metro rail and such, center will give more money. So, and apart from that, for tourism development also it will give. So these are why, you can see, center is giving particularly state specific grants tied to these particular sectors. Then defense and internal security. Modernization fund for defense and internal security is being created. Why should we do modernization of defense? What is the need for modernization? Because to maintain, you can say,
keep pace with the adjacent countries.
To maintain pace with adjacent countries, that means to maintain, you can say, power balance of power within the region. If Pakistan is upgrading its military, India should also upgrade its military. Imagine we don't upgrade military, but in other countries they do it, then it is an invitation for war. They will feel that India has become weaker. If we have to maintain peace, it is imperative that we continuously invest in our, you can say, defense infrastructure and continuously upgrade it. As of now, there is no war because whatever balance of power, it is same. And as of now, if there is a war, there is no clarity on who will actually win, and that is why they don't want that uncertainty, nobody is going for war. You understood this? So we have to focus on modernization fund for defense. Consistently, we have to keep on modernizing, we have to keep on spending money on defense. So Rashtriya Suraksha Naivedyam Kosh has been created. Capital investment for modernization. Can you give some example of capital investment in defense?
Like the setting up of the, like in UP some plant is going to be there for
Defense factory.
Capital, okay. Setting up of ordnance factories is correct, because it is going to, you can say it is investment. Even buying some assets which will stay for probably 25-30 years. Buying Rafale jets from France is also capital infrastructure. Revenue, I mean this capital investment. Revenue would be, you can say, maintenance of these salaries, maintenance, and even you can say, if you are, imagine you are using bullets, manufacture of bullets in these ordnance factories will be revenue expenditure. And bullets, even if you are not using them, it will have an expiry date. We have to keep on manufacturing batches and remove older batches. So that means, you can say, that is revenue expenditure. Here we are talking about capital expenditure for modernization. The government has tried to bring bulletproof vests which will be used for years together, some Kevlar vest. And similarly, this sort of even helmets which are enabled with night vision, these are all capital expenditures examples. Capital investment for CAPF and modernization of state police forces. For CAPF, Central Armed Police Forces, also same thing. We will give some extra, you can say, equipments and such. That is capital investment. And modernization of state police forces, central will give you just money, sponsor it, and state has to invest it because police is a state subject. In India, this is the biggest challenge. State police forces are not modernized since probably decades because state political classes, they feel a sense of insecurity that once we modernize police, then we may not have them under control. Imagine some crime happens right now, it is possible to erase that crime completely because there is no DNA evidence, nothing. But if we have modernized it and if we create a clear chain of custody and something similar to what you see on US TV shows where people will come and dust the fingerprint and everything, then it will become very difficult to manipulate evidence. And that is why so far so many recommendations since Dharmendra Commission, Rai Bureau Commission, National Police Commission and everybody since a long time have been recommending to do so many things, but not much has been done with regard to reforms in police. So because of, you can say, lack of political will, vested interest of existing political parties. Then a small component as welfare fund for all soldiers and paramilitary personnel. Some amount will be kept as welfare fund. If they are killed in action, die in duty, then you can say money will be used for welfare of the family, education of their children and such. That is also a part of, you can say, this fund. It will have three specific sources of funding. Transfers from Consolidated Fund of India, that means government itself will contribute some money from the budget. Disinvestment proceeds of DPSC. DPSC means Defense Public Sector Enterprises, including HAL can be considered, you can say, as defense. Similarly, ordnance factories which produce bullets and such also can be considered as defense public sector enterprise. When we do disinvestment in these, whatever money comes, it will go to defense ministry, and that money will be used for, you can say, this Naivedyam Kosh. Proceeds from monetization of surplus defense land. Defense land actually was, when India got independence, every state government had some obligations to give some land within the state to defense ministry. So they gave a lot of land. And nowadays this defense land has become the center somewhere in the middle of a city. And the real estate prices of this defense land has probably increased 1,000-fold since independence to now. So right now, the proposal is sell this defense land, maybe some 50 acres is there in the middle of a city. If they want to do some defense exercises, there is no need to do it in the middle of a city. They can do it somewhere. So 50 acres if you sell, you can buy 1,000 acres elsewhere and still remain with thousands of crores. So that is basically the current, you can say, proposal. Sell the defense land somewhere in the city, buy it elsewhere, and remaining money, proceeds from receipt of defense land would likely to be transferred to state governments also, because state governments are the one who gave this initially. Like I said, it was a grant from the state to defense ministry. So some money should go to them, some money should go to central government, and some money will come to this modernization fund. You understood this? So this is basically for defense and internal security. So far whatever we discussed is 15th Finance Commission report, which is currently in implementation, in the middle of implementation. Devaluation improves exports because it makes items cheaper compared to dollar. Yeah, it makes it, you can say, whatever you are buying, it will make it cheaper if you are buying it outside the country. So next is economic survey. Economic survey usually is given for the year that is over, 22-23, and budget is always for the coming year. That is why when budget is released, budget will be for 23-24, and economic survey is released, it will be for 22-23. You understood? Survey of the economy of the past year, that is why it is for, you can say, 22-23. So what they have given in economic survey, I've identified major trends which may be asked in exam. India's economic growth in financial year 23 has been principally led by two things. First is private consumption. Private consumption means people are buying things, that is leading to increase in demand, production virtuous cycle. Purchases made by consumers is private consumption. Second is capital formation. Capital formation means investment. Earlier somebody asked ICOR, incremental capital output ratio is actually an example for an indicator of this. Capital formation means investment in the economy. Capital to output ratio. If you invest 100 rupees of capital, imagine you get 1000 rupees extra output. Problem is incremental we have to take because the stock of capital that has already been invested is very difficult to identify how much is it. So what we do is this year how much extra capital we have invested, that much only we take, and because of that how much extra production is happening, flows, only this much we calculate. When we are calculating flows, that is why it is called incremental. Incrementally if we add 1 rupee, how much extra production will happen, that is incremental capital output ratio. You understood this? Overall capital formation simply means investment. Capital we have already seen, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Capital means investment. Capital formation means how much extra investment is happening in the economy. Then challenges to growth in this decade, whatever we have seen so far. First is COVID-19 pandemic has been a major challenge to growth. How did it affect growth? It reduced demand, it reduced supply, both. It disrupted demand and supply and it disrupted the entire virtuous cycle. It created problems. And Russia-Ukraine crisis, how did it affect India? Oil prices increased and inflation increased. As oil price and inflation increased, India's, you can say, disposable income reduced and demand reduced. A vicious cycle was created. Monetary tightening and flight of capital from emerging economies. Monetary tightening means because we have to deal with inflation, we increased the interest rates in India, and other countries also increase their interest rates, and inflation when it is very high. Flight of capital means what?
Whatever empires are there in emerging economies, pull out their money and invest in some country like USA.
Correct. So flight means it is running away. Whatever foreign investors had come to India and they had invested, they had taking their money and running away. That is flight of capital. Why are they taking it away? Because in India inflation is too high and right now we are not in a good situation.
So what's the 1+ strategy?
1+ strategy means
Like China is following that the major companies that are there, and now they are like shifting to some other countries,
okay.
and like they are means some problems they are facing there. So based on it, like India may be a major attraction for them. So like I'm not clear that why it is.
Okay, I don't remember 1+. You can send what they have written about it. If I see it, then I'll be able to understand. But I don't.
China plus one strategy, sir. All those manufacturing companies are shifting their production to other neighbor countries or where like
Correct.
India
So
or some countries.
they are shifting their manufacturing facilities to other countries. This part is clear. But China +1, I don't know what it is. So
They are saying that China is there, but we have to create some temporary. We have to shift from there, not dependent on China.
okay.
China +1.
Okay, so whatever I remember reading about it is, in China what is happening is, China is reaching a developed economy level. Earlier I think in classes we had seen, as country develops, what happens to overall demand in the country? It keeps on reducing because people already are out of poverty. They don't have that kind of propensity to consume. They already are, everybody if they are rich, what happens to consumption in the country? As consumption reduces, you can say whatever, demand also reduces, production reduces, the virtuous cycle will slow down. As production reduces, the probability, or you can say the capability of businesses to earn profits will also reduce. As it reduces, banks cannot give loans at high interest rates. They can only give at low interest rates because profit rate itself is 5%, 6%. That means banks can give only 4%, 3% interest rate loans. If banks are giving less interest rate loans, what can they give to depositors? Even lesser interest rate. So that means you can see as demand reduces, the whole economy will go into a low growth type of a cycle, and that is what China has entered today. And also on one side this is happening where profits have reduced, on the other side as everybody is rich now, to maintain their lifestyle, what would happen to labor costs? Labor costs would have increased. Profits have reduced, labor cost has increased. This has led to, you can say, some sort of narrowing down of profits for companies, and they are trying to exit. As they try to exit, the options available to them that I have observed are, you can say, mostly they are moving to CMLV countries. CMLV means Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos and Vietnam. These are the countries mostly they are moving to. In India, they are coming to, some of them are coming to India, but in India we have major challenges against manufacturing sector like logistics and ease of doing business problems. So, which have been resolved by some countries like Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos and Vietnam. So, majority of the companies actually exiting from China, they are all going to CMLV countries. In fact, Vietnam has become a very attractive destination because Vietnam has become member of every FTA. If you produce in Vietnam, you can sell to 90% of the world from there without any taxes. You understood this? So, in fact, Niti Aayog has said some of Indians should go and set up in Vietnam because we can at least trade from there more with other countries. So, this part, it was there in news earlier itself. I don't know about particularly China plus one. If you have anything, you can send it to me. I'll see and I'll be able to respond to that. Then we saw COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine crisis, monetary tightening and flight of capital we saw. Then Chinese slowdown due to zero COVID policy. When China faced its own third wave, they felt that we have to go for a rigid type of lockdowns whenever there is, you can say any COVID, there was lockdown and very rigid type of policies. This led to supply chain disruptions and reduction of demand and slowdown in China. As slowdown happens within China, China is a big part of GDP of the world today, and as slowdown happens in China, overall GDP of the world also reduces. So this leads to, as GDP of the world reduces, other people who are exporting to China or others, you can say dealing with China, they will also lose money. When the entire world is going to get affected, we will also be affected because of that. World's entire GDP growth has reduced because China's slowdown also is happening. Zero COVID. So that means they took very harsh type of measures until COVID becomes zero. Zero cases of COVID should be present. Until then they did not lift lockdowns in some areas and they kept very rigid rules with regard to mask mandate, no theatres, no particular sector, schools and colleges were not open. Wherever more than 50 people can gather, everything was banned. So that means what happens to, imagine no weddings, no schools, no colleges, no restaurants, no theatres. Our entire 20% of sectors themselves are closed completely. Then what happens to GDP? So there will be contraction in the economy. This is zero COVID policy. So prospects of growth. India's recovery from pandemic was relatively quick. Within India, we have internal inherent strength. So it means India is a resilient economy. Very quickly we will recover from many major type of outcomes. I mean this sort of criticism. I mean you can say critical incidents also. And growth in upcoming year will be supported by. So far they are talking about how quickly we recovered, and next they are saying in the next year because of solid domestic demand. Within India we have strong demand that is developing, and second, pick up in capital investment. Investment is also going to improve by next year. Because of this reason you can say overall growth will pick up very strongly in India. Then global growth and trade prospects. What about the world? In India we have a strong tendency of, you can say, picking up growth quickly. As per IMF's World Economic Outlook, global growth is forecasted to slow from 3.2% to 2.7%. Because some of the problems of this decade, whatever we just saw, they are not yet resolved. That means this Russia-Ukraine war is still, you can say, it is not yet resolved. And so within Europe there is some sort of economic conflict also. Because of this Russia-Ukraine war, there is polarization that is happening. Whoever, you can say, the West does not like, they are imposing some sanctions if you deal with Russia and such other things. This is leading to less trade also. As per WTO, growth in global trade is expected to slow down because of all the associated sanctions. US has passed an act where I think probably everybody knows about CARDS Act. CARDS means countering America's adversaries through sanctions. So this CARDS Act basically says anybody who trades with Russia, as of now Russia is relevant, or maybe even other countries like Iran, North Korea, these are America's adversaries. Anybody who trades with them, US will not trade with that country. So India, if it is buying oil from Russia, this led to some sort of tension between US and India temporarily. So this is all happening because of this CARDS Act. Because of CARDS Act, imagine people will not trade much with Russia, and when they trade, somebody if they trades, because if they are neighbors, then US will impose sanctions on them. All these type of things are leading to reduction in global trade. So economic survey projects real GDP growth of 6.5% for 23-24. This is you can say for India. That means this is for overall India's probable growth rate. Then they have discussed about past reforms, whatever has happened. In the past 8 years, government reform framework laid emphasis on enhancing ease of living and doing business. Overall in India, we have jumped, you can say, ranks probably almost 70-80 ranks in World Bank's ease of doing business. Recently, they have stopped giving this ease of doing business by World Bank, but within India, we are continuing giving state-wise ease of doing business ranks by Niti Aayog. So that there is inherent, you can say, competitive federalism that we will build so that we can continue progress on ease of doing business, even the World Bank at international level has stopped it. So enhancing ease of living means it is not just about business. For people, we have to reduce compliance burden and make, you can say, all the things wherever dealing with government was happening, opening businesses and such other things also. Ease of doing business probably will be a part of ease of living itself. So ease of doing agriculture also, somewhere Prime Minister has spoken about it. For agriculture also we have made it somewhat easier. It will help India to grow, you can say, at its potential. Also lift the economy's potential growth. Potential growth means what? Potential GDP, I think we discussed briefly at one point. If inflation is constant, how much actual growth we can achieve if inflation is not going to increase is called as, you can say, potential GDP. Here, India's potential growth, if it has to increase, and then if we remove all these type of restrictions, then even though inflation, this is a different concept, but overall potential growth means what is the maximum growth we can achieve because we have removed all the restrictions. Growth that we can achieve is much higher compared to earlier. Then, so this diagram they have given in economic survey, underlying framework for reforms. Ultimately, we want to achieve ease of doing business plus ease of living. Creating public goods is one aspect. We have already seen what exactly is a public good. So they are creating some databases which everybody can use. Maybe all the public infrastructure that we are talking about, that is also public good. Trust-based governance, this we will see what exactly it is. Then agricultural productivity. Productivity means what? Production per unit area is, you can say, productivity. In 1 acre, how much we are able to, how can we increase agricultural productivity? What should we do? We should increase somehow some sort of efficiency, or that means we have to add some technology or improve our inputs like seeds and such. So that means by improving investment into agriculture, we increase agricultural productivity. Then improving private sector participation. This is furtherance of same LPG reforms, more liberalization, more privatization, so that you can say more private sector participation will happen. So using all these things, we want to achieve ease of doing business and ease of living. So this will lead to better, efficient resource allocation, enhancing productive potential for economy and its people. This is, you can say, overall reform framework that India has taken in the last 8 years. So what is this public infrastructure that we are talking about, or digital public infrastructure? Even they have mentioned somewhere digital public goods also. Both are, you can say, same. So this digital public goods, you can see in the next slide I have given this Aadhaar, eKYC, UPI, eSign framework, DigiLocker. These are all examples for projects which people are able to use, you can say, now consistently, which we are calling as this digital, digital infrastructure. So this will give strong forward linkages to non-digital sectors. What exactly is this forward linkage, backward linkage? Forward linkage. Imagine some product is being produced. This forward linkage, backward linkage, I think
Like
in consider.
Industries connected to each other, like the raw material of the one industry used to.
Correct. So that is, imagine food processing industry. Backward linkage for food processing means raw material, buying of, imagine mango is made to mango pulp. This sourcing of mangoes, grading, certification, cleaning. So this will come under backward linkages. Forward linkage, once your processing is being done. Forward linkage means packing this, you can say, then marketing, transport, distribution, sales, export, these things will come under forward linkages. So forward linkages for non-digital sectors. Imagine because we have UPI, JAM, Trinity, everything, a farmer is capable of easily selling his product on, you can say, maybe NAM, or you can say using UPI, they can just, receive payment. So forward linkage means after some productive activity has happened, Things are becoming much easier because of this digital public infrastructure. Earlier, we used to face a lot of problems, we have reduced them. Then, digitization strengthens potential economic growth through various channels like higher financial inclusion. Because now everybody is included in this financial sector, almost we have achieved say 90%, 80%, 90% financial inclusion. So everybody has a bank account. This leads to, you can say, increasing potential growth of the country. As everybody has a bank account, they will add their savings into the bank account. On one side, why economic growth will increase? Money multiplier will increase or not? As all the people put their money in the bank account, as money multiplier increases, money supply increases, demand is going to increase. And also these people are now capable of taking loans easily from the bank at lower interest rates compared to money lenders. They can start their own businesses or whatever small entrepreneurship that is possible, that will also increase production. So you can see this digitization will increase, you can say, potential for growth in the country. Then greater formalization. Probably you know what is informal, formal. Informal means what? Informal in India as a sector, if they have not registered with government, are not paying taxes, then you can say it is informal. Not registered, not paying taxes. Because of these consequences, if they are hiring some people, there is no record that this person is employed, the person does not have any social security benefits. So these all are consequences of informal sector. One more consequence is, there is no need to follow, they don't follow any labor laws. If they are forcing someone to work for 18 hours also, government cannot do anything because they don't even know all these things is happening. Imagine they are using in some sort of food processing industry some harmful food colors. Can government stop it? Government doesn't know whether it exists or not. That means compliance to safety regulations and labor regulations and such other laws is not going to be possible with informal sector. Formalization is actually good for consumers who will consume this product, labor who are working in this factory, even the producer also in the long run, because his money will be white money and he will not be coming under any compliance type of restrictions and fines and penalties, jail term and such other things. You understood this? So that means we want more and more formalization of the economy over the long run. So this also, using digital public infrastructure, we are trying to make it as easy as possible for formalization. If compliance becomes easy and less costly, more people will actually show interest to become formal sector of the country. Then increasing efficiency. This part is very simple because we have public infrastructure, we don't need to, earlier people used to go to each government office to get separate permission, get compliances, submit files, etc. Nowadays everything is just online. I mean, we have saved probably here only thousands, lakhs of crores probably across the country by preventing all these type of, you can say, activities. Then increasing opportunities. Now it doesn't matter where people are, they may be in villages, district headquarters, or you can say cities. They will have equal opportunities, especially on this technology based platforms. So that is one more advantage. Example we saw DigiLocker, UPI, this digital signature, all these are example of digital public infrastructure. How to study foreign trade policy? You don't have to study everything, whatever is important I have given in these topics, miscellaneous topics. I will discuss it. Apart from that, no need to go into too much of detail. Then trust based governance. Trust based means trust between who? Here between government and society. That means between citizen and government we need to build trust. As of now the trust is very poor. India in general it has been called as a low trust society. Low trust means, why is it called low trust society? Overall in India people don't trust each other, people don't trust government, people don't trust anything. That means in compared to other countries, say in India trust is very low. Why is it low? Because we have seen, lot of the rule is created but the rule is rarely followed. So people don't have the trust that everything will automatically be going according to rules. Imagine you go to get driving license or something. You see there people who don't know how to start the car also are getting driving license. Then how can you trust all the people who are driving cars on the road? You understood this. So that means India is a low trust society because of lack of institutional strength in India. Institutions are not able to do what they are promised to do, so we cannot trust anything that is going on. Imagine regulator promises that whatever is going into your food, we are going to take care of it. But you know that if somebody gives a suitcase of bribe, then they will overlook whatever substances they are adding into this. So you can't trust that. So this is basically the reason why we don't have trust is we don't have strong government institutions. You understood this. As institutional strength improves in a country over a period of time, you can say trust among people with regard to companies, with regard to everything else that is happening in the country keeps improving. In India, trust is, you can say, a very hard commodity to earn, but whichever company or whichever government or anything for that matter, if they start earning trust, then they will accumulate this trust very quickly and they will become extremely powerful, because it is very hard to trust anything, and those who are capable of earning that, which is a rare commodity. So you can see why in India, Tatas, if they set up any company, people will all buy it because they already have trust on that brand. They feel whatever Tatas will make, it is going to be good, and they don't add any poison into that. So people will feel it is better to buy it. You understood this? So increased efficiency, if we have better trust between government and people, once we establish this, if we have confidence that whatever government is doing is for our benefit and we'll follow it, then it will lead to increased efficiency, improved investor sentiment. Investors will feel that government is not going to do anything which is combative, as if it is fighting against us. Everything they are doing is for our good. So that sort of a trust we have to establish. For example, earlier I told you that this government, when they came to power, they removed retrospective taxation, whatever Arun Jaitley called as tax terrorism, uncertain type of tax rules, so that we develop trust among investors that they can confidently invest in India. That is an example of trust-based governance. Better ease of doing business. So here, government should start trusting people, then people will start trusting government. If government is acting as if we are going to verify everything you do, then people also will feel that we are subjects of a king or something, where king will impose orders and we have to follow it. So this relationship, if it has to be based on a trust, then in ease of doing business, what we are doing right now is compliances are all self-declarations. So I am following these rules, it will be declared. There will be maybe verification mechanisms which will not interfere with the day-to-day business of the, you can say, this particular business. Will not stop their business, but some sort of verification will happen without affecting their business. So this sort of trust-based, you can say, governance we need to develop. And more effective governance will also be a result of trust-based governance. Some reforms, it is not an exhaustive list, some examples of what exactly will fall under trust-based governance. This insolvency bankruptcy code, which has made it easier for people to exit their businesses. Earlier, I think 3-4 years back, economic survey called, in India we have a Chakravyuha challenge. Chakravyuha challenge means what? Chakravyuha means exit problem in India. It is very difficult to exit businesses. You cannot close businesses easily. Like Abhimanyu goes into the war and he cannot come out. Chakravyuha. Similarly, once you open a business, you cannot close it easily. That is what they meant as Chakravyuha challenge. If that sort of a problem is there, they don't have confidence on government that they will allow us to close, then we have a problem. IBC has created confidence that we can close the company when we want it. Maybe it takes some time, but it is much lesser. Probably it is taking 20 to 25% time only compared to earlier. So insolvency bankruptcy code is one mechanism which is improving trust. Then RERA. RERA is Real Estate Regulation Act. House buyers have now trust that if I buy a house, then RERA Act is going to take care of my interest, and I will get the possession of this house whenever they have promised. If they don't give it, then some government will take some action against this person. So that is also trust. Decriminalization of minor economic offences under Companies Act. So small offences have not been now declared as criminal offence. People, if they overlook something and make a mistake, for that if they are going to be sent to jail, then you can see this creates a mistrust between government and companies. That we have removed. Removing retrospective tax we already saw. Simplifying processes by doing away with 25,000 unnecessary compliances. We have created teams to identify all these unnecessary things where compliance is required, and we have removed all of them. This is a part of strengthening of liberalization itself. What is the meaning of liberalization? Liberty means what? Liberty means freedom. Liberalization is moving in the direction of freedom, more freedom. Who for who? More freedom for private sector. That means no need to comply with so many laws, so many rules. That means we have given more freedom for private sector. That is the meaning of liberalization. We are doing this since 91, and right now we are only going faster in the same direction. Then repealing more than 1400 archaic laws. This repealing acts I told you already. So these are all examples of trust based governance. This I have taken from Insight's website based on a long editorial whatever they had given about trust based governance. You can go through it, it is not a part of economic survey. This I have just given as extra, you can say, reference material for you. What else has been done with regard to trust based governance, other dimensions of it is present. So we'll take a break and continue after break. Okay. Then you can ask outside. Welcome back, everyone. So we are discussing economic survey, and we have to continue from similarities between 2014 to 22 and 98 to 2002. Economic survey has compared the present period in India to a historical period, that is 98 to 2002, and it has identified a lot of patterns which are, you can say, repeating right now. Between that period and this period, a lot of commonalities are present. This is what it is talking about. So what was the goal of, you can say, that period, and right now you can see common type of theme is present. Broad principles of creating public goods, adopting trust-based governance, co-partnering with private sector for development, improving agricultural productivity, these are all common themes. Under normal circumstances, if you do reforms like this, then that means large scale reforms, usually you will have very good growth, but it is one such period where the external, you can say, type of situation and also COVID and such other things in India right now, even though we have done all these reforms, we are not able to see the results of these reforms. And it was similar during this, you can say, 98 to 2002 also, it was, situation was somewhat similar. That means we were not able to see the result of the reforms because of a lot of things that were happening at that point of time. So you can see, due to COVID, twin balance sheet issue, etc., not much increase in growth, and some reforms, whatever we have right now taken, they are all, you can say, reforms which will give long-term impact, and it may take some time for them to actually show results. So this is, in that also it is somewhat similar to whatever happened between 98 to 2002. So they have given a comparison, whatever the shocks to economy in 98 to 2002 and right now, 14 to 22. First is in 1998 we did nuclear testing. Probably Vajpayee government was there, you would know about this Pokhran 2. It was Operation Smiling Buddha, I think. So on this, when we did this nuclear testing, then I think Bill Clinton was US president and there was sanctions on Indian economy. That means there was less trade, and this led to, you can say, Indian economy facing some problems. But India never backtracked. We said that we want to continue peaceful use of nuclear energy and we will not stop it. So this is nuclear device testing that happened and sanctions that followed. And banking and corporate sector deleveraging and repairing balance sheets. After 1998 East Asian crisis, if you remember in Basel norms I told you that there was East Asian crisis, and post that we did some sort of changes in India, and that is same thing that right now whatever is happening because of increase in NPS and such. So deleveraging, and deleveraging means reducing leverage, reducing the amount of loans that corporate sector has taken, repairing balance sheets, that means reducing liabilities, improving assets. Then two successive droughts that happened between 98 to 2002 is also one more shock to the economy. And technology bust and US recession, 9/11. There was 9/11 is basically in 2001 when, you can say, World Trade Center collapsed because of attack of Osama bin Laden on World Trade Center. US faced a recession at this point of time also. Technology bust means, I don't know whether you have heard of it, there was a Y2K problem when 1999 to 2000 when we shifted. The chipsets and computers that we had built had some sort of fundamental problem with regard to timing. And so that time, that was some sort, it led to share stock prices of all these technology companies crashing. There was a major problem in 98 also, it was a bubble, you can say, it is called as dot-com bubble. So this dot-com bubble also happened during this 98 to 2000. So you can see a lot of shocks were present to the economy at this point of time. And similarly right now, what is exactly the shock, this part we already know. So period of banking, non-banking, non-financial corporate sector balance sheet stress. Stress means, stress in the balance sheet means we are talking about NPS. In banking sector, non-banking sector and non-financial corporate sector means even we are talking about normal corporates also. Their balance sheets are also under stress. This is what we earlier saw as twin balance sheet syndrome. So we are facing this sort of a problem right now. Unprecedented pandemic shock followed by inflation, global commodity price shock followed by tightening of financial conditions. This part also we already know. That is basically on one side we have pandemic, that means COVID, and after that we have tightening, means we have increased interest rates, and that is creating, you can say, less cash supply also in the economy. These are all shocks that are present right now. You can see then also we had shocks, and now also we have shocks. And then also we did some structural reforms, interest rate deregulation. Narasimhan committee recommended that at that time in 98 we had a Narasimhan committee. He recommended we should remove all the controls over banks' interest rates, and RBI said banks can now decide interest rates by themselves. So banks started deciding it. And privatization we continued. Asset recovery for banks, we created Surface Act during that point of time. Surface Act we already discussed. Then infrastructure. Golden Quadrilateral is basically roads in India. You might have seen, if you see the map of Golden Quadrilateral, it is connecting 4 major cities. Then FRBM Act was also enacted. These were major structural reforms. You can see actually majority of them are even, its utility is very strong even today also. We are using almost all of them even today. Then right now what are we doing? Unique identity is Aadhaar. Financial inclusion is Jan Dhan Yojana. GST leading to formalization, GST, everybody, we had just discussed what it is. Then IBC, Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, GST, actually these are the biggest reforms. Privatization, it was there since 91 and we are continuing, but right now it is even more strong. Like I said, complete exit of government from industrial sector is present goal. Then tax rate rationalization, what does it mean? Rationalization means we are trying to reduce tax rate a little bit. Wherever it is, you can say too much, we are trying to reduce it. And tax administration reforms, that means like I said, to improve debt to GDP, tax to GDP ratio, to collect more taxes, that is tax administration reforms. Then decriminalization of offences we saw in detail. Vaccine rollout, we are giving free vaccines for COVID. And expenditure management reform, reducing unnecessary expenditure to reduce our revenue deficit and effective revenue deficit particularly. Expenditure management commissions have been set up in earlier also, and now we have set it up to reduce unnecessary expenditure. We are not set up an exact committee, but you can say reforms have been done. Then Atmanirbhar Bharat, this I told you, it is a package that was introduced as a, you can say, response to COVID induced recession. Everything where we tried to push extra cash into the economy to recreate this virtuous cycle. It is called as counter cyclical policy. We have a vicious cycle, we want to counter this cycle to create a virtuous cycle. This is what we call as counter cyclical policy. Atmanirbhar Bharat is one such measure which we try to use to change the cycle from vicious cycle to virtuous cycle. And public digital infrastructure, which we just saw, all this JAM Trinity and everything is coming under this. These are all major structural reforms, you can say. Then also there were major structural reforms, now also they are. Then growth returns, because we have implemented these structural reforms, ideally what should have happened, we should have seen good growth, but that did not happen. Why at that time it did not happen? One-off shocks delayed the growth returns. That means some shocks that were created in the economy in the middle here and there at that point of time, it delayed the returns. And once shocks faded away, structural reforms paid growth rich dividends from 2003 onwards. So basically what economic survey is saying is, whatever Vajpayee government did under such reforms, UPA government reaped actually the dividend of, you can say, these reforms, and their growth rate improved. And right now, similarly, you can say whatever reforms we have done, we are unable to see its effects yet. Maybe it will take another 1 or 2 years. Balance sheet strengthened in financial sector, corporate sector deleveraged by 30%. Deleveraging means reducing the overall amount of loans in the corporate sector. Imagine the net worth of corporate sector is totally 100 rupees. How much total loans taken by corporate sector is 70 rupees. Means debt to the total net worth of corporate sector is 70 by 100. Deleveraging means reducing the debt to maybe 40. Then 40 by 100 will be reducing 30% of debt of corporate sector. You understood this? So this deleveraging we did, and then emphasis on macroeconomic stability while dealing with global shocks. So for emphasizing macroeconomic stability, we saw a lot of structural reforms, whatever we have done. So because of all these global shocks that are happening outside, that means this Russia-Ukraine war and before that pandemic, etc., we are not able to fully see the actual positive impact of all the reforms that we have done yet. And only once these external aspects, external problems fade away, then we will be able to see the returns of whatever you can say this sort of reforms that we have done. Then they have given union government's capital expenditure as a percentage of GDP. You can see in the last 3 years there is a consistent increase in capital expenditure. What does it tell us? We are going, first thing we are going for expansionary fiscal policy, and then we are not wasting this opportunity of expansionary fiscal policy on unnecessary, you can say, expenditure. We are focusing on actually something which will create dividend over decades. In future, all the investment infrastructure that we are doing right now, in the next probably 1 or 2 decades, it will continue to provide, you can say, good returns for the economy. So then, rising average monthly GST collection. You can see from 20 in 21 actually it reduced, and after that consistent increase is showing. If GST collection is increasing, what can we infer from this? Consumption is increasing. That means production is increasing, consumption increasing. It is a sign that India is coming out of this COVID-induced recession. And also the improvement is also not small. There is a significant jump year on year, which shows that quickly you can say recovery is happening in Indian economy. Then trends in union government deficits over the years. This part we have already seen in budget. Same thing they have given. What is the actually trend? It had increased during COVID, and now we are going for consolidation. We are trying to go for consolidation. We don't know whether if it is possible to consistently go for consolidation. Probably we will continue this path where we continue to reduce this fiscal deficit. As far as Indian economy continues to come out of recession, it is fine. That means we will continue in the same path. Then economic survey has listed out what are the further reforms that are necessary. First, deregulation and simplification of compliances should continue. That means even now India is an over-regulated economy as per economic survey. Over-regulated means after removing even thousands of regulations also, still there are too many regulations which there is a need for removal of. So they are trying to continue this process and remove all the unnecessary regulations. State government should address DISCOM issues. DISCOM means what? DISCOMs are electricity distribution companies. So those whatever issues of DISCOMs are, state government earlier they had created Uday scheme for, you can say, issues of DISCOMs. So in India DISCOMs are facing severe problems. They are consistently facing one after the other, you can say they are all failing and government is supporting them. These type of things are happening. This Uday is Ujjwal DISCOM Assurance Yojana. What is the problem of DISCOM particularly? Basically DISCOM is distribution of electricity. The problem in India with regard to electricity distribution is theft of electricity that happens is one big problem. Second, transmission and distribution losses that happen because of, you can say, electricity usually it is in the form of heat, there is loss of electricity. And inability to collect the bill for people who are not actually, you can say, stealing electricity, meter is running but there is a lot of delay in payment of bills. So these are all the problems, you can say, with regard to DISCOMs, and that is why they are facing major losses. So state government should identify and resolve whatever problems are with regard to DISCOMs. Reduction in compliance burden of MSMEs. Whatever rules and regulations apply for a person running MSME, or you can say people running MSME, as of now too much of burden is present, we have to remove it. Initiative to sensitize population towards a healthy lifestyle. So healthy lifestyle and obesity level, these two things also they have added, you can say, as reforms necessary for the future. So with regard to this, there is one trend that is interesting in India. Until 2017, majority of disease in India used to be communicable disease. Communicable means you can say whatever like pathogenic type of disease. We have bacteria, virus, or normal common cold or infections, etc. But in 2017-18, majority of disease, whatever you can say, major disease in India, burden in India shifted to non-communicable disease. And after the COVID, suddenly you can say it shifted and now it is coming back again. That was only a temporary blip. But in the long run, the trend is very clear that non-communicable disease is going to be the biggest burden for India's health sector in future. So that means you can see that right now our focus should be on how to reduce this non-communicable. What is the meaning of this non-communicable disease? So we are talking about normal like diabetes, so heart attack and stroke because of increased cholesterol levels, obesity, associated risk of cancer and such other things. These are all non-communicable diseases. Lifestyle diseases. If we can improve lifestyle, we can reduce the risk factors by huge amount. So that is basically, you can say, that is why we have taken these two as goals. Then focus on education skilling. In the long run, we want to develop human capital development should continue as it is. So that is basically focus on education skilling. Then capital expenditure led growth. Capital expenditure, we just saw now, India is consistently increasing capital expenditure. This strategy will enable India to keep growth interest rate differential positive. What does it mean? Imagine we are spending extra 10 rupees as on capital expenditure by taking it as a loan. On this loan, we have to pay interest or not? Imagine we are paying interest of some 4%. But because we have invested in capital expenditure, government is earning extra 6%, you can say, tax. Imagine growth has happened, extra 6% growth has happened. If taxes are buoyant, we will earn more than 6% as tax. You understood? We took 10 rupee loan and we invested it. Government is earning 6 rupees extra because of this, and we are paying only 4 rupees. That means, is it beneficial for government or not? Until it is not going to be beneficial as much if you keep on taking loan, but right now it is beneficial. You understood? If you take 20 rupee loan, this will not work. If you take 10 rupee loan only, earlier we saw one graph which says that government expenditure, if it increases too much, after that there is diminishing returns, negative returns. The capex-led growth strategy will enable India to keep the growth interest rate differential positive. That means this is the growth, this is the interest rate. When you subtract this growth minus interest rate, it is still positive, and central government can continue, you can say, operating without making any serious losses, leading to a sustainable government debt to GDP ratio in the medium run. Because this is sustainable level debt, as growth is increasing, debt to GDP ratio will consistently remain normal. You understood? Imagine we have taken 10% debt, but GDP also increases more than 10%. Then GDP has increased, debt has increased, debt to GDP ratio is still healthy. You understood this? This is the meaning of growth interest rate differential. So then what are the other benefits of capex-led growth? Crowding in of investment. If government spends a lot on, you can say, infrastructure, then all this money will go to the companies where it is, you can say, giving tender to or PPP projects or something. The companies will invest money. They will buy steel, and steel manufacturer will produce more, and overall this money is going into production in the private sector, and that is why it can be seen as crowding in. Earlier what we saw, wherever government, you can say, is trying to increase production, giving more money towards private sector, then that is called as crowding in. Other areas of crowding in, what else constitutes crowding in? Examples of when crowding in effects operates. Government, if it directly spends on infrastructure, also crowding in operates, because the money finally goes to, you can say, some other companies only. Government guaranteeing loans, this part I have already explained. This will lead to more loans and lower interest rate loans given to private sector. Government giving viability gap funding. That means more private sector investment will happen, because whatever the viability gap is, government is, you can say, bearing that burden. Then government investing in fund of funds, giving grants to startups. This will also increase private investment overall. Fund of funds means government will invest in a fund. That fund will invest in other venture capital fund and such other funds. So this will also lead to constitute to crowding in effect. So this is one advantage of capex-led growth. Capex is capital expenditure here. Long-term implications for growth due to infrastructure spending. Earlier I told you that 1 rupee invested in infrastructure will in the long run bring 15 rupees back into the economy. So that sort of long-term implications are present. Increases demand. This from the beginning itself, demand increase is immediate, because the more money flows into the economy, more demand will increase. And increases supply in the long run. This will take time. Once the infrastructure project completes, then only supply can increase. So both of them, on both demand side and supply side, it will create positive impacts. Supply, how it will improve, because now availability of this town, and earlier I told you that all these infrastructure projects will connect economic centers to non-economic centers. Some density of population is present here, but economic center is here. Now all these people will produce something and sell it here, so that for that extra income. That means supply is increasing or not. So this is increase in supply in the long run. So why inflation is occurring right now? That means in the last 1 or 2 years, what is the major cause of inflation? They have identified one, government's packages for expansionary policy. Why are we going for expansionary policy? Because we want to get out of COVID-induced recession. Second, supply side disruptions are not yet completely resolved. On one side, we are increasing demand. On the other side, supply side, whatever problems were created during COVID, they are not completely resolved. For example, during COVID, what happened was many people who were, who had come back. Usually in India, there is a north-south differential between labor. Southern India is called as click and mouse economy, service sector dominated. Northern India is called as brick and mortar economy, industry dominated. So this has created shortage of labor in south, surplus labor in north. This will lead to lot of labor moving to south to work. And during COVID what happened was, they felt that it is better to go back right now because opportunities are going to be limited. And lot of people, in fact in crores, they came back to these states. And so once they came back, as of now, even in 2023, complete recovery of this, them coming back to work in southern states has not happened. You understood this? This is one problem, supply side disruption. These type of supply side disruptions that have happened during COVID, they are not completely resolved yet. If labor problem is there in southern India, then supply will reduce or not? If supply is reducing but demand is increasing, what happens to inflation? It will lead to increase in inflation. That is, you can say, one more problem. Then right now there is focus on consolidation, fiscal consolidation and monetary tightening also. It means we have increased interest rates, government has tried to reduce spending. So this consolidation overall, it has affected even production also, producers. Supply side also is getting affected, not just demand side. So as supply is less, demand is already high, supply which is already less, it is also getting affected. We are not able to resolve, we are reducing overall money supply, but inflation whatever was there, that has not been resolved. You understood? Because of reduction of money supply, which side of inflation can we control? Demand side or supply side? Demand side. Because the problem, as of now the problem is not demand side inflation actually, the problem is supply side inflation. Consolidation is only sometimes worsening the problem and not actually addressing the problem. You understood this? Then depreciation of the rupee. As rupee depreciates, what happens to imports? Imports become costlier. As imports become costlier, that will also create inflation. Oil prices, Russia-Ukraine war. These are the reasons what economic survey has identified as, you can say, causes for inflation that is happening right now. So with regard to consolidation, it has identified that we cannot go extremes. If we go for a sudden consolidation, it may hurt medium term growth. If we suddenly reduce the money supply in the economy, in the medium term growth will suffer. This is one thing. But if we go too slowly, then inflation probably will increase because of demand pull inflation increasing. If we keep on pushing more money into the economy, will it increase inflation or not? So if this is high bond yields, earlier we discussed a bit about bond yields. Anybody remembers what is the meaning of bond yield? It happens in secondary market, this part we saw. Government has actually issued a bond. This is primary market, interest rate of the bond. This person is selling to another person. So this is secondary market. In secondary market, whatever this person is going to get returns, this is called as bond yield. When demand for bonds is very high, imagine people, everybody here, so many people are there here. The price of this bond in the secondary market, it keeps increasing. Then what happens to yield of this person? It will decrease because so many people are trying to buy. They will buy it at the cost which is higher. So the remaining money available in this, whatever government is going to give as interest, it will reduce. So demand for bonds are inversely proportional to yield of bonds. So imagine we go for slow type of consolidation, stopping of consolidation. So stopping of expansion and slow type of consolidation. So that means we continue to take new loans. It means expansion is still continuing. Maybe less expansion, but it is still continuing. If we continue to take new loans, will new bonds be issued or not? If new bonds, consistently supply of bonds, if it is increasing, then what happens to, you can say, supply of bonds in the primary market itself is increasing. Lot of bonds are coming. And in secondary market also they are there. As supply of bond increases, what happens to demand for bonds? It will decrease. As supply keeps increasing, you can see lot of people have already, who are wanted bonds, they have taken it and gone home. Remaining demand is less. Demand reduces, then what happens to yields? Yield will increase. You understand? Demand and yields are inversely related. So problem with this is, if yields are high, imagine if government wants to release new bonds to go for another round of expansion. Right now you are somebody in the market, you can directly buy from the government also, you can buy from secondary market also. Yield in secondary market is already high. Which one will you buy? Secondary market will be more profitable for you. That means if government has to take this loan, how much interest rate should it release loan bonds at? it should be probably higher than the secondary market yield or not. That means it makes loans costly for government. So this part about bond yields is somewhat, it's slightly complex topic. If you don't understand this part, you don't have to worry for prelims. It is, if it is asked, it is going to be very difficult type of category of question. Probably only 1 out of 1000 students are able to answer it. So don't worry about it if you don't understand. If you understood it, if you already studied it, then you can say answer that question. So high bond yields, high cost of debt means because bond yields are high, if government has to release a new bond, then you can say it has to release it at a higher interest rate. If it releases it at a higher interest rate, then means you can say it is a loss to government. This is the problem if you go too slow with regard to consolidation. You understood this? Yeah. So operation twist, if I have to explain it in simple terms, right now imagine this is the situation. The situation is that the bond yields have increased, and right now if government wants to take a new loan, somehow yields are too high and right now it will become too costly. Twist means what RBI will do is, RBI will actually try to reduce the yield of bonds. If yield has to reduce, what should happen to demand for bonds? If yield has to reduce, demand has to increase. If demand has to increase, RBI goes to the bond market and buys these bonds. RBI, because it is buying these bonds, demand will increase and yield will reduce, and then government will take a loan. You understood? This whole process, whatever it does, it is called as operation twist.
If the government want to buy more capital for the money from the market, then the government deliberately want to reduce the bond yield. So
Yes, if it wants to borrow, it has to reduce the bond yield. To reduce the bond yield, it asks RBI to buy some bonds so that demand increases and yield will reduce. You understood this? Like I said, it is slightly complex. There is a yield curve, and this curve tries to, you can say, twist. But right now, actual concept is this much on. RBI will interfere and it will try to reduce the yield. That is what we call as operation twist. So then they have listed out in economic survey what all reforms we have done in the last few years in budget also. First is improved fiscal transparency and realistic revenue assumptions. They have said that we have reduced this off-budget borrowing as much as possible. Somebody already asked the meaning of this off-budget borrowing. What does it mean?
Issue of government, some other institute take loans, like PSA.
Correct. So when government is not showing the borrowings in the budget, it is showing as PSU has taken this loan or some other agency of government has taken the loan, it is not added to fiscal deficit. That is what we call off-budget borrowing. But the problem is, it will affect transparency and accountability. Now they are saying we have improved the fiscal transparency by avoiding this off-budget borrowing as much as possible. You understood? This is one reform they have done. Discontinuation of planned non-planned classification. Before 2015, we used to have planning commission, and when planning commission was there, it made sense to have planned non-planned distinction. Now we don't even have this plan non-plan. Planning commission itself is not there. 5-year plans are not there. So we have removed this plan non-plan type of expenditure type of classification also. Railway budget and main budget used to be different. First railway budget used to be presented and then main budget. But right now we felt that there is no point of separating the two. Long ago, railways in India was created in 1853, Bombay to Thane first railway line by British. At that time, railway expenditure used to be so significant, so large that it needed a separate budget. But we felt that right now railway budget has become relatively smaller in the overall entire budget. We merged it together. Shifting the date of budget to 1st February. Earlier, budget used to happen somewhere in March, April, sometimes there is a delay, and already the financial year has begun, and even now also budget has not completed. So they used to take special permission and spend for 2 months through vote on account, all these type of things were there. So we felt that if we just do the budget completely before the year starts, then everything will be clean. No need to, you can say, do all these type of circus. So this was the goal here. If we finish the budget before the financial year starts, then you can say we can start spending the money. Legally money is available. So that is why we shifted that. These are the major reforms that have happened with regard to budget and you can say budget related reforms in the recent times. Coming to debt position of government. So debt position means what is the situation with regard to total loans taken by government. By the end of 2021 March, economic survey has only given data until here. So even if a question is going to be asked, it will be only until here. About 95% of central government debt was denominated in domestic currency. What does it mean? Foreign debt is only remaining 5%. That means 95% is domestic debt, which shows a very healthy type of, you can say, debt in Indian economy. We are not any dependent on any other country. So this is one thing. Sovereign external debt is entirely from official sources. That means we have taken loans only from other countries. We have not taken loans from people by issuing currency to people, or so because of this reason, whatever dollar value increase or decrease, it will not affect us directly. Only when we pay back, when we take institutional funding for long time, that means the sort of, you can say official source type of debt we have taken for a long time. These loans are sometimes, you can say, for this bullet train, we have taken a 50-year loan, and only after 50 years we will pay it back. So right now, it won't affect all this, whatever international markets are happening, these type of things are not going to affect us. If we take a short-term loan from people as bonds are issued just like in India, treasury bill or something, then it will create problems for us. So then, public debt is mostly taken at fixed interest rates also, with floating internal debt constituting only 1.7%. What does it mean? The interest rates of bonds that are issued by government, it is fixed for majority of the bonds. Only 1.7% of the bonds issued by government, it is a floating interest rate type of bond. That means risk of government, is it limited or not? Because it is very clear how much interest they have to pay, and in that sense you can see it is insulated from interest rate volatility. Interest rates will not change because when they took the loan itself, they promised a fixed interest rate. So that means there is no much risk for government because there is no volatility in interest rate. This is with regard to government debt. So coming to position of the banking system, gross NPA of scheduled commercial banks has fallen to a 7-year low. This is not because we have resolved these NPAs, mostly it is because we have sold all these NPAs to bad bank, that is this NARCL. So sudden decline in NPAs within the banking system has happened because of this reason. Then capital to risk weighted assets ratio remains healthy at 16%. This is also why so high, because when NPAs were sold, extra money whatever was kept as provisioning, that is still there. So sudden increase of, you can say this, it looks like suddenly we have 16% capital to risk weighted assets. You understood this? So slowly they may reduce it, or they may use this to give more loans so that it will slowly come back to 9%. But right now it looks like suddenly there is an increase to 16% of capital adequacy ratio. So regulatory requirement is 11.5%, 9% plus 1.5 capital conservation buffer. This part we saw earlier in Basel norms. Trends in debt of NBFCs. NBFCs continue to deploy largest quantum of credit from their balance sheets to industry. Who is actually getting most loans from NBFC? Industry. This is a good sign or bad sign? It is good, because in India weakest sector is actually industry, after that agriculture, and after that you can say services. Banks are trying to give more loans to services, so at least somebody is giving to industry, which will actually strengthen the sector. This is overall good for the economy, followed by retail, services and agriculture. So NBFCs are giving a lot of loans to, you can say, industry, which is a good trend that has developed in Indian economy. Then coming to loan recovery trends. As per RBI data in financial year 22, total amount recovered by scheduled commercial banks has been, under IBC has been the highest. So this is a trend based question type of questions are possible like this, where we have recovered most of the loans, under which are the categories. IBC has been the highest category where most of the loan recovery has happened. So this sort of questions are possible in exam. This is a factual trend based question, but because it is there in economic survey, it is possible. Compared to other channels, Lok Adalat, Surface Act, DRTs, compared to that, you can say highest amount of recovery has been through IBC. Then this export performance compared to 2019 and 20, how much is it? This is number, but you don't have to remember the numbers. Just go through the slide by yourself to see whether there is any major change with regard to export performance. So merchandise exports, and you can say share in world, and you can say overall India's rank in world trade. This is only ranking given and percentage given, so that is factual data. Coming to international assets and liabilities. International assets and liabilities of basically Indian residents. People are in India and their overseas financial assets, that means they have bought some asset abroad or they have taken a loan from abroad, that is liability. So you can see Indian residents overseas financial assets were 850 billion approximately, and international liabilities at 1250 billion approximately. So that means you can see our liabilities are more than assets. Net claims of non-residents on India was around 38. If you take the difference between them, net claim means how much we have to pay to others, considering assets, liabilities both. That is called net claims. So you can see which comes out at 11.5% of GDP. Assets are covering the 68.5%. Means if you divide this, you can see our assets are able to cover 68.5% of our debt. If you sell all of our assets, then this much you can say we can pay back our liabilities. This is the present situation with regard to individuals within India, their assets and liabilities abroad. So this is about international assets and liabilities. Then IMF has tried to identify what will be the growth rate of the overall world, and IMF global growth is forecast to slow down in 2023. Because global growth, it will affect our exports. India is 70% of GDP is coming from services, and that too you can say it is dependent on export. So that means if global growth is low, then our exports will reduce. So export outlook may remain flat. Focus on product basket, destination diversification. Economic survey has given two suggestions. They are said already whichever country we are exporting to, try to sell other products also in the same country. And destination diversification means find other countries also where we can export, so that we can somehow, you can say, increase our overall exports. These are the two suggestions. Then focus on efficiency, productivity, technology, innovation to improve market share. That means existing countries where we are already selling, if we are unable to find new destinations and cannot sell new products in this year, then the only way where we can increase our exports is at the cost of other countries. That means we have to increase our market share compared to maybe China or Bangladesh, whoever is selling in that country. You understood this? This is called increase in market share. So improve market share in existing base of countries. Then some miscellaneous trends I have given, whichever have been given in economic survey. MGNREGA is seeing creation of more assets in works on individual land category. 60% share of MGNREGA work is happening on individual land. Means what? We are talking about some farmers' land. MGNREGA is giving wages. Some people are coming there and building a pond or some, you can say, warehouse or something like that. So because it is beneficial for the farmer also, it is beneficial for, you can say, these people who are going to get wages also. So that is as of now 60%. MGNREGA 2.0 is currently running. 2.0 major change that has happened is, right now focus is not just on production of, creation of employment. Focus is also on creation of durable assets. So we are focusing on convergence in 2.0. Convergence between all the schemes. Under Kaushal Yojana, we will give training to workers on how to become a good mason or builder or something. Then their skills are used under Gram Sadak Yojana to build roads, Gramin Bhandaran Yojana to build warehouses, Awas Yojana to build houses, etc. These are all assets being built under MGNREGA labor. You understood this? We are trying to bring convergence between all the schemes. That is the 2.0 which is running currently. So then rise in employment levels is visible from periodic labor force survey, which shows urban unemployment rate for people aged 15 to and above declined to 7.2. From 9.8% we have reduction of unemployment. So unemployment reduction is a good sign or not? That means we are coming from vicious cycle to virtuous cycle slowly. Recovery from COVID is happening as employment rate is increasing. Then growth in credit since Q4 of 22 has moved into double digits. Growth in credit means we are coming out of liquidity trap. Usually during a recession, after a recession, we will have some sort of liquidity trap where RBI is not able to push more loans even if it reduces interest rates. So we are coming out of that particular situation right now. So that means loan offtake is increasing. Overall credit has increased in most sectors, which shows that people are showing confidence in the economy, that if you produce more we can be selling it. So that is another good sign which shows, you can say, improvement in the economy. The National Family Health Survey in India shows improved rural welfare indicators from 16 to 20. Gender fertility rate, household amenities, women empowerment, all these things have increased in, you can say, villages. So family health survey shows these welfare indicators have improved. So development, these are signs of, you can say, root level development that is happening in India. India is third largest economy in the world in PPP terms and fifth largest in market exchange rates. This is the present, you can say, ranking with regard to, if you consider both of them. The number of pension subscribers has multiplied over threefold between 18 to 22. Subscribers means we have created Atal Pension Yojana and such schemes. How many people have actually subscribed to these schemes? If you see, then people who have subscribed have increased. Niti Aayog is using nudge. Nudge theory is in economic theory where somebody got Nobel Prize to nudging people means removing friction and creating incentives to seek positive, behavior among people, like subscribing for insurance and pension, etc. In India, what we are doing is we are making it very easy for subscription to insurance and pension. For example, somebody who opens this Jandan account, automatic some IVRS call will go to them. If you want to subscribe to pension, press 1 or otherwise press 2 or something. So by the time the call is over, people don't know what to press and they will press something and they will be subscribed to pension. Suddenly, you can say we have threefold increase in pension subscribers in last 4 years. In general, overall, it is a good type of sign because social security in the country is going to increase with pension and insurance subscriptions. So, final conclusion on what has happened is financial year 23 has nearly recouped what was lost during this COVID, renewed what had passed. That means you can say whatever this cycle had been passed, now we are starting this virtuous cycle again, and re-energized what had slowed during the pandemic since the conflict in Europe. Conflict in Europe is what we are talking about, Ukraine and Russia itself, and consequent all polarization within Europe that happened. So this is with regard to economic survey. These are the major trends in economic survey. Usually, in my opinion, you don't have to go into much more detail. If you are clear with this part, you can answer majority of questions. But if you feel that you want to go into detail, then don't read the entire book, take some summary and read it. But if you are scoring, right now you try to write a economy test, 100 questions test. If you are scoring more than 50, 60 correct out of 100, then no need to study further economy. If you are scoring maybe 30, 40, then you have to identify, list out all the topics where you have made a mistake, go back to those topics and do revision of them. Polity and economy are subjects where you should score approximately 60% score. That means you take any subject wise test, it should score around 120 marks, 110 to 120 marks, then you are good enough, you will be able to score well in exam. As of now, if you are going to give prelims and you don't have clarity on what to do, you are in confusion, focus on first polity economy, and once you are scoring, you can say this much, 50 to 60% in this, then go to you can say environment and current affairs, whatever PD365 or whatever you are reading. If you do all 4 of these properly, thoroughly, then probably approximately 60% questions in prelims are going to come from this. All the other subjects put together are going to be only remaining 40% questions. So this way you can prioritize what is more important and make better use of time. So coming to some miscellaneous topics. This foreign trade policy, last week I think, only 2-3 days ago they released it. It seeks to take India's exports to $2 trillion by 2030. Usually, foreign trade policy earlier, they used to release for a period of 5 years. Last foreign trade policy came in 2015, 15 to 20. Because in 2020 we had pandemic, they said let us keep extending the existing policy itself, and they did not create anything new. And now they have found enough time to create this, but they have not given a time period. It is not for 5 years. Until otherwise specified, it will continue. That means indefinite time period, it will continue. So used to be released for 5 years at a time earlier, but right now it is indefinite. And under what act do they usually create this foreign trade policy? Under Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act 92. This is how once in 5 years they used to create this foreign trade policy. So there are 4 pillars. If there is a question on foreign trade policy, probably it will be on these 4 pillars. Other unnecessary too much of detail about foreign trade policy is not really important for exam. So first is incentive to remission. Earlier they used to give incentives for foreign trade. Incentive means if an exporter is exporting 100 rupee worth of goods, Government of India used to give 2 to 5% of that. That means 5 rupees to the exporter as incentive. But WTO did not like this, because what this exporter will do is to outcompete some other country, Vietnam or Bangladesh. What he will do is he will sell his product at 97 rupees, because government anyway is going to give this compensation. Then what happens is our product will become more competitive compared to other countries. Now other countries have complained against this in WTO, saying that they are following unfair trade practice and outcompeting us. So government has felt that to follow international fair type of trade regime, we should not give incentives and we should shift towards another remission type of incentive. Remission means whatever taxes have been paid by the exporter, all these taxes will be refunded back to the exporter. Against this there is no rule in WTO, or nobody is against this. So that means because of this reason we are giving all the taxes back to the exporter. You understood this? For that we have created a scheme. This scheme was already there, right now just reiteration. Remission of duties and taxes on exported products. All the taxes paid by these exported products, we are just giving back to the exporter. Then export promotion through collaboration. That means exporters, states, districts, Indian missions, they will all collaborate with each other. And Niti Aayog has said we will do reformation of EPC, Export Promotion Councils also. These councils are responsible for helping the exporters in India. For example, there is a coconut board, whoever will export coconut based products like coconut oil, etc. Cashew board, whoever is coffee board, these are all export promotion councils. If you want to export it, this promotion council will find where there is demand for this product and give that list of importers to exporters so that they can easily export. So this is collaboration with all these things. Then ease of doing business, reduction in transaction cost and e-initiatives. So that means we have introduced e-initiatives. Reduction in transaction cost means we have tried to reduce compliance and transaction wherever costs are high. We have tried to reduce it as much as possible. Like for example, for customs clearances and such, wherever people had to pay a lot of money, we have tried to reduce it. Then process re-engineering and automation is being done. Sometimes wherever government clearances are required, or if it has to go from one stage to another, port movement, etc., port to ship, ship to port. For this, automation and process re-engineering means how many signatures are necessary, who should give clearance, unnecessarily when too many people are involved. We have changed the processes to make it as easy as possible for the importers, exporters. So this is, you can say, process re-engineering. It is all, usually it will come out as BPR, business process re-engineering. It is just a short form for this business process re-engineering. Sometimes they call it as government process re-engineering also, to be academically correct, because it's not exactly business. So all are referring to same thing. What process we have to follow to import a product from coming from ship, what all forms we have to fill up, who should give permission, this is the process. We have changed the process to make it easier, that is what is called process re-engineering. Then emerging areas, e-commerce and developing districts as export hubs. We will identify what is a competitive product in each district and we will try to focus on giving them whatever resources are necessary to increase export from that district. Then streamlining of this SCOMET policy. SCOMET, I think I have given here, special chemicals, organisms, materials, equipment, technologies. So this is basically SCOMET. We are trying to increase export in this category also. Then we are trying to create towns of export excellence also. 4 towns have been added recently. This earlier already 39 are there. Now in this new foreign trade policy they have added 4. Faridabad, Mirzapur, Moradabad and Varanasi. So mostly right now whatever 4 they have added, they are all related to textile industry and fabrics. So as of now the focus on these 4 towns is fabrics and textiles export. So this much if you know about foreign trade policy, it is enough. A government document is more than 100 pages long. No need to read all these, you can say, aspects with regard to foreign trade. Coming to Electricity Amendment Bill. So this is actually 2022. You can change that date. DISCOMs need not distribute electricity through their own networks. As of now, distribution company, how it is working is, in a particular area, there is a DISCOM. This DISCOM will distribute to all the households. But right now, we want to create a system where another DISCOM can also distribute to this household, and there is no type of concept of jurisdiction anymore. So that we want to create competition between DISCOMs themselves. You understood this? This is the basic idea here. They need not distribute electricity through their own networks. Non-discriminative open access. Even though this network is created by this DISCOM, other DISCOMs will have open access to this network to distribute to the consumer. In fact, you will have choice to choose which DISCOM you want to buy electricity from. So that is basically to provide competition between all these DISCOMs, they are trying to create it. Then cross subsidy balancing fund by state government. So here you have to understand what exactly is this cross subsidy. Cross subsidy means, as of now, if people are consuming some electricity units up to 500, bill will be very low. After that, bill will be slightly high. Here people who are consuming very high, they are paying huge amount, and for government how much it costs, if you see, it will be somewhere here. We are subsidizing these people who are poorer by actually adding extra money on people who are richer. This is called as cross subsidization. This cross subsidization, usually what happens is, when we have this mix up of DISCOMs here, whichever is a smaller DISCOM, they will all be, you can say, under this category only, because they are not selling enough electricity. To avoid this problem, we are going to rebalance this cross subsidy, whatever has been collected, balancing fund is going to be created, so that they will get, you can say, redistribution of this subsidy will happen between all these DISCOMs properly. That is called as cross subsidy balancing fund. Then CERC, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, will grant licenses for distribution of electricity in more than one state. That means if there is a, you can say, state border, this DISCOM can actually sell to, you can say, other state also. But they have to get a license from Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, and then they can sell. Then empowering this SERCs to specify RPO. Renewable purchase obligation means DISCOM, where are they sourcing their electricity? Mostly it is coming from coal-fired power plants, but renewable purchase obligation means at least some 5% of your electricity, wherever you are buying, it should come from renewable energy. This sort of a goal is set up for all these DISCOMs. So state governments can actually create these type of goals for DISCOMs, so that there is a market created for renewable energy. Similarly, we saw with regard to compressed biogas also, this concept is similar. The national logistics policy, here also only these 4 pillars are important. Everybody already knows what is logistics. So anything that is required for movement of a, you can say, good from point A to point B, including its storage or transport or shifting from one mode to another mode, all will fall under logistics. So what is our goal here? You can see in policy they have given some keywords. It should be technologically enabled, integrated. We are going to integrate all modes of transport, cost efficient. That is the ultimate goal. We want to reduce the cost associated with it. It should be resilient. That means it should not easily break down. Whenever there is a severe rainfall, logistics breaks down in it. So that should not happen. Sustainable, that means related to carbon dioxide emissions. And trusted, we saw trust-based governance, we should be able to trust the roads. So whenever anybody wants to go on a trip, first they will check on Google and from other people whether road is good or not. That means we don't have that much of trust on existing logistics infrastructure. So Unified Logistics Interface Platform, ULIP, is going to be created, single portal for all digital services under logistics sector. So that means any digital service you have to receive, we have created a single, you can say, digital source. This was created earlier first under National Infrastructure Pipeline. Then after that, there was a scheme created. What is the name of the scheme for infrastructure right now? Monetization pipeline is one. Gati Shakti scheme was created. Under Gati Shakti, they have created this ULIP, Unified Logistics Interface Platform. Then integration of digital systems. Whatever existing digital systems are there, imagine shipping ministry has its own system, and highway ministry has its own, and railways has. So these 30 systems of 7 departments will be integrated for better coordination between all of them, so that you can say integrated system is created. Then ease of logistics. This e-logs is ease of logistics portal. Whenever any, you can say, private sector has any serious problem with regard to ease of logistics, they can take up this dispute with government directly under this ease of logistics portal. System improvement group. So from every ministry, some officials will come together and a system improvement group is created. They will focus on how to improve the overall this logistics system in India. So it is like a supervision type of group, regular monitoring from officers of different ministries. These are the 4 pillars of this logistics policy in 2022. So then this convertible bonds, this was, I think it is a concept, it is a static concept, but we'll discuss a bit about it. Convertible means bond, everybody knows, a person has given a loan to a company, this is what we call as bond. Convertible means if both of them agree, they can convert this bond into equity. That means a loan which has been given into shares. Then we call this type of bond as convertible bond. Both parties have to agree, then they can convert a loan into shares. So bondholders can convert equity to equity if they want to into a predetermined number of common shares. Common shares means it is not preference shares. Earlier we have seen the difference between preference shares and common shares. When the company goes for liquidation, whoever gets the money in the end, they are called as common equity holders or common shareholders. Bondholder will have a right to convert it to equity. When inflation is high or company is performing well, bondholders may want to convert into equity. Imagine inflation is very high. Bond is giving return of 6%, inflation is 10%. Then what are they getting as return? They are getting negative 4%. So they feel that it is better to convert it into shares because we are not getting much return here. Or company is performing very well and the share price is increasing rapidly. Then also they may feel that it is actually a good idea to convert it into equity, I will get better returns. So these are the 2 scenarios where conversion will happen. Companies will get easy access to credit if they issue convertible bonds. For a company, you are giving, imagine you are the company, you want immediate money, you are giving a lot of flexibility to the whoever is going to give you loan. They will have the ability to take back loan also, and if they want to convert to equity also, more people will be interested to buy convertible bonds or not. Yes, so it will make it easier for companies to raise money if they issue convertible bonds. There was last year a question on these convertible bonds. With reference to convertible bonds, consider the following. As there is an option to exchange the bond for equity, convertible bonds pay a lower rate of interest. There is a general trend we saw. As risk increases, return also should increase. Similarly, there is one more. As flexibility decreases, return will increase. Consider a fixed deposit and a normal savings deposit. Which one will have better interest? Fixed deposit. Why? Because your flexibility to withdraw the money has reduced. You expect more return there or not? Imagine right now, you have the option to change it. That means what has happened to your flexibility? It has increased. As flexibility increases, what should happen to returns? It should reduce. That means the statement is true or false? It is true. As there is an option to exchange the bond for equity, convertible bonds pay a lower rate of interest. It is actually true. Because they are giving so much of flexibility to people, you can say interest rate they can afford to give less interest rate, still people will be interested. Option to convert to equity offers the bondholder a degree of indexation to rising consumer prices. That means they can link it to consumer prices and based on that they can take decision. This is true or false? As inflation increases, they can make a decision to convert it to equity. We just saw. So they have used slightly complex language. What it simply means, you have a option in case inflation is high. You have an option to do something else, to convert it to equity. So that means it is true or false? It is true. You have an option to convert to equity. So both are true. You understood this. This is how this convertible bonds are working. This part I have already discussed what exactly is additional tier 1 bonds. Anybody remembers what are they? They are ideally actually bonds means they should be tier 2, but RBI has allowed them to be treated as tier 1 if they are irredeemable bonds. That means if there is no time period written on the bond. So right now under Basel norms we saw tier 1, tier 2, permanent, temporary. To raise this 11.5% capital, banks are allowed to release these additional tier 1 bonds. All the bonds are loans, they are temporary capital and they are temporary capital. Only this type of bond are classified as tier 1 capital. We already know about 9% plus this, you can say 1.5 but 2.5 maximum, at least 1.5 has to be kept by, you can say this bond. What are the characteristics? No maturity period, that is why we call it as irredeemable. Interest rate may be withheld by the bank if its capital falls below a certain level. Other provisions also are there. We will not give you interest rate if capital is too low. If bank is about to fail, RBI may even allow the bank to cancel the bond completely. That means we will not even pay principal amount. Then under Basel III norms, maximum 1.5% out of tier 1 capital can come from AT1 bonds. More than that, they cannot release entire thing as AT1 bonds. So because of this, risk is high or low in this? Risk is high. What about flexibility? Flexibility is also low. You cannot claim back whenever the money. That means what should happen to return? It should be because of risk also return is high. Because of low flexibility also return is high. That means interest rate will be high, but bank has no liability to pay back at any time, indefinite liability. So that is why it is considered as, you can say, permanent capital. You understood this? Inflation index bond, somebody already asked this question. Interest rate is linked to inflation. So what will they write as you can say in the bond they will write principal is 100 rupees. Interest rate they will not write as 10% or something, they will just say CPI plus 3%, CPI plus 4%. That means they are just linking it to present inflation. So they will take a loan and they will give interest rate today whatever CPI is there, depending upon above that we are going to give you extra little bit. This is called as inflation indexed bonds. Government finds it difficult to sell bonds whenever inflation is high. They have to give very high interest rate to sell bonds. So as a solution, one of the solutions that it has tried is, if we link it to inflation itself, then we don't need to worry. If inflation reduces also, they will get real rate of return some 2-3%, and increases also still they will get it. Some people will always be interested to buy this sort of inflation index bonds which protects them from inflation. So this is why makes it easy for government to get loans, especially during periods of high inflation. This is what we call as inflation indexed bonds. Look at this. With reference to Indian economy, what are the advantages of inflation index bonds? Government can reduce the coupon rates on its borrowing by way of, coupon means interest. It is just another word to say interest with regard to bonds. Government can reduce the interest rates on its borrowing because of inflation index bonds. True or false? Because what has happened to your risk because of inflation index bonds? Risk that you make a loss has reduced or increased? You buy, imagine, inflation index bonds. For you, risk has increased or reduced? Risk has reduced. If risk has reduced, what will happen to return? That means compared to normal bonds, coupon rates will be higher or lower? Lower. You understood this? So that means if one is true, which one can you eliminate? 2. IIBs provide protection to the investors from uncertainty regarding inflation. This is definitely true. 2 has to be there. That means interest received as well as capital gains on IIBs are not taxable. So this part is purely factual. When they have released these IIBs, they would have released some information with regard to that, and based on that you have to answer it. Imagine you don't know about it, then you between these two you can say answer which one is true. Between that itself you can answer. So this type of questions where there is a mix of concept and fact, something like you can say this will also be there. Static and current affairs mix will also be there. So you have to, if you eliminate 2 options, usually my suggestion is you can say you have to answer that question. Then somebody asked to explain this rear and near, so I have just added it. If you want me to explain, I will explain it. It is a static concept. Should I explain it or you have understood what is? So I'll try to explain it in a brief manner. We have already discussed about exchange rate. That means 70 rupees if we used to buy $1, this is what we call as exchange rate. Depreciation means if it becomes 80 rupees, appreciation means if it becomes 60 rupees, it is called as appreciation, depreciation. But the problem is, with regard to exchange rate, we don't have, one single dollar I am just taking here as an example, but every current country has its own currency or not. That means India has around 36 important trading partners with which we trade. So imagine, with regard to dollar, India has depreciated. With regard to euro, it has appreciated. With regard to yen, it has depreciated. So many changes are happening at once. How will we know as a summary of one single number we want, which if we look at it, we should know whether compared to all the trading partners put together, Indian rupee has appreciated or depreciated. So that is why we created, instead of normal exchange rate with one currency, effective exchange rate. What does it mean? We have actually many countries, 190 to 200 countries. All of them are not important for us because we don't trade with all of them. We trade with 36. So what we do is we list out all these 36, and then we don't trade equally with all 36. We trade more with some and less with others. When we trade more with some, how will we balance then? We have to give weights. Earlier, similarly, we saw in CPI, we give weights to more important. We will give more weight to important countries, less weight to less important countries, and then we will get a number. And finally, we will arrive at a number here. This is what we call single number will come out by, you can say, taking weightages and everything. When we look at this single number, this is only few steps, extra mathematical steps may also be involved. What happens to this? This is a weighted index. You can see depreciation of rupee, and you can say reduction of this number will mean depreciation of rupee compared to 36 trading partners, and increase in this number reflects appreciation with respect to 36 trading partners. You understood? A single number, when you look at it, whether it has increased or decreased, it will tell us whether appreciation or depreciation has happened. This is the meaning of effective exchange rate. So what exactly is near and rear then? Usually nominal and real, what does it mean? You can tell by yourself. If you remove inflation from nominal, then you will get real. So here the problem with this is, inflation is, we have to remove inflation from all the countries. 36 countries inflation is going to be 36 different inflations. So we remove the inflation in the beginning itself, before we multiply it with weights, and then we multiply it with weights, and then we will finally get the number that will be called as real effective exchange rate. If we don't do this removal of inflation in all these 36 trading partners, then that is called as nominal effective exchange rate. You understood this? This is the only meaning of effective exchange rate. If you understand, if you remove inflation to get real effective exchange rate, if you understand, then that is very simple, everything else is same. So this is actually the concept of nominal effective exchange rate, real effective exchange rate. And we have created an index in such a way, if you look at that number, if it is increasing, it means appreciation is happening with regard to 36 trading partners. If it is decreasing, it means depreciation is happening with regard to 36 trading partners. Now look at last year's question. In fact, every question you can answer with regard, so far whatever they have asked with regard to near and rear, only by this much understanding. With reference to Indian economy, consider this. An increasing near indicates appreciation of rupee. True or false? If one is true, which one can you eliminate? An increase in rear indicates improvement in trade competitiveness. Increase in rear means appreciation of rupee. If appreciation has happened, increase of exports will happen or decrease of exports will happen. If decrease of exports will happen, do we say trade competitiveness has increased or reduced? It has reduced. That means this 2 is false. You understood? We are not able to competitively export our products. That means trade competitiveness. If 2 is eliminated, then A is wrong, D is wrong, C is correct. Just to verify whether 3 is true or false, you read it. An increasing trend in domestic inflation relative to inflation in other countries is likely to cause increasing divergence between near and rear. Imagine you don't understand it, then also you can answer it because already you have eliminated. But because already you know that difference between near and rear is inflation, as inflation in India and those countries, as it diverges, near and rear difference also should diverge. So impossible trinity also, somebody every day they were asking about impossible trinity, so I have added this also. So what does it mean? There are 3 variables. You can say we can achieve only 2 at a time. This is the meaning of impossible trinity. Imagine free capital mobility. It means complete capital account, current account convertibility. That means there are no restrictions by RBI if you want to convert rupee to dollar, dollar to rupee. This is the meaning of convert. It is very simple. Rupee to dollar, dollar to rupee, if there is no restriction. This is what we call as free convertibility. Capital account means for capital account transactions where you buy assets abroad or reduce liabilities abroad or something, there is free convertibility. Current account means for import and export, there is free convertibility. So this is called as, you can say, convertibility. Imagine we have full capital account convertibility. It means our rupee value will keep going up and down because it is now, we are not controlling it now. It is dependent upon people, capital inflow and outflow. Imagine we give full autonomy to RBI. Then RBI will focus more on inflation, it won't focus on this. When we have full autonomy to RBI and we have this, you can say, free capital movement, then we cannot have exchange rate management because rupee is moving up and down, we cannot control rupee. Imagine we want to control rupee and we have free, full autonomy to monetary policy. Then we will not have full capital account convertibility. That is the present situation. We have these two in India and we don't have this. Imagine we want exchange rate management, we want control of exchange rate at maybe 85 rupees or something for rupee to dollar, and we want free convertibility also. That means government is actually forcing RBI to do something, it is not completely independent. You understood? Government is forcing RBI to control this exchange rate even though we have this. That means RBI will go and sell and buy rupee to make sure that exchange rate is controlled. So this is basically impossible trinity. We can only have two of them. We cannot have all three. This is the meaning of impossible trinity. So somebody has asked about this windfall tax also. Center has cut windfall tax on crude producers, scrapping petrol export levy also. What does it mean when we say windfall tax? It is a one-off tax imposed by government on a company. One-off means it is a one-time type of tax, it is not regularly something that you pay. It is levied on unforeseen or unexpectedly large profit. Unfairly if it is obtained because of some large change somewhere else, suddenly somebody makes a big profit, then that is a windfall gain. Windfall means a lump sum amount has been gained. So windfall tax means on that lump sum amount whatever they gained, government will tax at once. It was announced to control rising domestic oil price and to meet domestic need for petrol. So sometimes what happens is when oil prices suddenly reduce greatly, they will try to, you can say, buy it and then sell it and make profits there. Oil producing companies, they are doing all these, you can say, transactions. If they make a very big profit, then windfall tax will come into picture for them. So by imposing windfall tax, we are forcing them to take lesser profits. So at least then they will be competitive and sell more oil. You understood? Imagine if your profits exceed 100 rupees, windfall tax is going to come into picture. Then you will reduce your profit to 90 or something. When you reduce your profits, then the oil price will also reduce. You understood this? If oil companies reduce their profits, then it was announced to control rising domestic oil price means you can see. If all the companies will try to take lesser profit because they don't want to pay this tax unnecessarily, then oil prices are going to come down. This is called as windfall tax. Then this is just a term. Fiscal deficit we already discussed. Current account deficit means when we do import export of these goods and services. When we do more import than export, then you can say we have current account deficit. More import means we have to pay $1 to someone. Imagine we import 100 rupee worth of goods, export only 50. Remaining 50 rupees in their currency, dollar, we have to pay to someone, whoever we have imported it from. You understood? This is current account. Imagine we have imported 100 rupee worth of goods. We have exported only 50. Who should pay how much to who? India should pay to whoever we have imported from this 50 rupees in their currency, maybe in dollar. This is what we call as current account deficit. So current account deficit shows our health with regard to external sector. Fiscal deficit shows our health with regard to internal sector. That is why these two are called as twin deficits. By looking at these two numbers, we can tell about the health of an economy. That is why they are called as twin deficits of the economy. Then with regard to Carotar rules. Carotar, what does it, there is a full form of Carotar which is not very important, but I'll try to explain what these Carotar rules are, which is, concept is important. So as of now, earlier you might have seen products, when you look at it, it used to say made in China, made in Korea and such, but nowadays you don't find that because it is not one country that is, imagine you take an iPhone, if you look at this product, it has been manufactured in 16-20 countries. Assembly is happening in India, battery manufactured in China, chipset is manufactured in Mexico, software in USA. That means distributed manufacturing production is happening of this phone. So it is called as, these type of products are called as network products. A global network of manufacturing facilities have produced this product. This is what we call as a network product. You understood this? Network product means it is not wholly produced. If it is wholly produced, then that is called as this goods wholly obtained, that means so goods wholly obtained is if it is fully produced, you can say in a single country, then it is called goods wholly obtained. But nowadays more and more products are moving to network products. One problem with network products is, imagine China is dumping some product into India at a cheap cost to capture our market. Then we can, usually earlier it was very easy, it is a Chinese produced good and they are selling in India, we used to put some tax on them, anti-dumping duty or something. But nowadays China claims it is not our product, we are just adding a little bit of value and sending it to you. You understood? The product has been produced in so many countries, we cannot call it as Chinese product. So in Carota rules, what we have done is, we have created some definitions and rules clearly to identify who is the origin country of the product, and that country is called as country of origin, and the rules which will define this country of origin is called as rules of origin. And they have said that if 35% of value addition of a product is happening in any country, then that country will be declared as country of origin. Imagine they are dumping steel into India. If 35% value addition of that steel has happened in China, then it is a Chinese product, and we have authority to impose anti-dumping duty or any tax on Chinese product, etc. So in a more globalized world, to identify who is the origin country is the utility of this Carota rules. You understood this? So these are topics, some miscellaneous topics I wanted to discuss. So somebody has asked about WTO related concepts are not really important. In the last 2-3 years, WTO has become less and less important because it is not able to control world trade much. They have not appointed some judges to WTO tribunals and such. So read only in current affairs whatever is there related to WTO, that is enough. No need to go into too much of detail in that. Which one? BOP. So BOP, basic concept of BOP, if you understand it is enough. Balance of payment account is including 2 accounts. This current account, whatever we just saw with regard to import export, capital account. Capital account means where there is transaction of assets or liabilities. Imagine an Indian citizen buys an asset in London, we buy land, then that is an asset. So whenever we do asset and liability, we take a loan from abroad, that is a liability. We pay back loan to abroad, these will come under capital account. In current account, normal everyday trade transaction, import export will come under current account. When you add both of them, then you will get balance of payments account. So think of it like, what is capital account, current account, if you have clarity, and if you add up both of them, then you will get balance of payments account. You understood this? So this will be last APEC class of economy. Overall for prelims, economy questions are going to be simple. You see previous year's questions, now you will probably be able to answer at least 50 to 60% of them. Your target should be answering 60% questions in economy. More than 60% you are very good at economy. That is, you can say, reasonable. Don't try to answer 80%, 90%. Then you are wasting time instead of focusing on other subjects. So right now, what you have to do is try and take important subjects. If you are able to score reasonably well, 50-60% score in that, then skip that subject from now on. Don't spend too much time. Maybe do revision here and there, but that is not the subject you should focus on. You should focus on those subjects where there is still opportunity to improve to 50%. So find those subjects. And also there is an order of importance here. Polity economy is highest importance. After that you have this, like I said, environment, because this prelims is common prelims for both forest service and civil service. Environment questions are going to be, you can say, significant number. You have to prepare well. And after that we have modern history, geography, and you can say, other smaller subjects. In this order, try to make sure you get 50% in every subject. Then you will be able to, you can say, clear prelims in a relatively easier manner. With regard to current affairs, I think somebody asked how to cover if you have not covered so far. With regard to current affairs, what you can do is try to read only one point. I think I told you earlier, even schemes also. About every scheme, you should know at least something. Awas Yojana is housing, MG Naraga is employment. So read this much will only take 1 hour. For entire 300 schemes also it will take maybe 1 or 2 hours only. But once you know about that one point, once you are comfortable, then go for the second point. If you know 3 points, probably you can answer it, eliminate 2 options. If you know 5 points, probably 3 also. Try to get to that level of comfort in all current affairs also same way. Don't try to read entire 50 points in entire current affairs at once, then you will probably get confused and you won't remember it. This approach is better for prelims. So once you are comfortable with this, try to answer questions, then you will find it that I am able to answer most questions like this. So if you have, probably I think earlier I had given my Telegram ID. If you have any questions, Telegram, this is Telegram channel. Telegram ID is 279. You can send it to me. If I am not responding, try to send a reminder, because whenever I get time, I respond to some 10 messages, whatever are at the top. There are around 300 messages still which I have not yet responded. So if you feel I have not responded, you just send me a reminder so that it comes to the top and I will respond to it. So we'll end the class here. Thank you. All the best for your prelims.